CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. Derek here, along with
Scarrels, also joined by
we've got Putter from Putter's Paperbacks on TikTok. I'm sorry, I blanked on your name there.
Yeah, no, you got it.
Well, thanks for being here with us. Not a whole lot of notice for you, a few days really. Like as we were talking before started recording, things came together pretty quick to make this work. Maybe if you want to introduce yourself, talk about your TikTok channel, and I guess one thing I'm always curious about is like your relationship to Malazan, how you found it, that type of thing.
Yeah. No. I mean, genuinely, I'm so appreciative. Anytime I have a chance to talk about Malazan, it's I hop on it immediately. It is the series that has probably mean the most to me and is very near and dear to my heart, and for good reason, obviously. I appreciate you guys, having me come on here. I mean, it's a huge pleasure. I actually probably started reading this series really early on, probably like in my reading journey, and I probably shouldn't have. I kind of jumped into the deep end pretty quickly, and it started skyrocketing, and I fell in love with it so quickly, and yeah, I mean, it's everything to me. There's so much. I try to get everybody to read this series, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm excited to obviously talk about the my favorite book in this series, believe it or not.
Oh, nice. Well, that worked out well then.
Yeah.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask, which was your favorite. So I guess that's out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
What about it makes it your favorite?
Yeah, I think it's for those who have read the 10-book series there's kind of like this understanding that it is the most tight and cohesive story. It is much more, it seems like Erikson was doing something different in this story specifically. And it just feels much more tight. The cast is a little bit, I guess you could say, smaller than some of the other books that, we'll kind of venture in and kind of talk about. But yeah, you spend a little bit more time with a smaller cast of characters, and I think people are able to connect to that. And it's almost like a fresh start, when you're going through the series and you come to Midnight Tides and you have no idea what's going on. I mean, chronologically, this took place before Gardens of the Moon. So when we look at this, we don't know anybody. So it's almost like a fresh plate to kind of go off of. And it's kind of like its own story. It's just so much more cohesive and knit together perfectly. And yeah, I when I started reading this book, I just smile when I talk about it now at this point.
Okay.
Nice.
And you're aware that we're first-time readers, right?
I am.
Okay,
yeah.
cool,
Which excites me more, I promise.
Okay. Well, I like to say that we read it 1.5 times because we obviously read the chapter and then we summarize like what we separate out, and then sometimes we'll reread the chapter. It's almost like we're doing the first time and the reread at the same time. But there's still a lot we don't know.
Yeah, but it's been a lot of fun, especially last book, House of Chains. We got quite a bit of stuff right that we thought, and obviously a lot of stuff wrong too. But it's been fun. So I think, Justin just got our episode, our interview with Erikson up on Patreon last night, and it'll go live everywhere Tuesday. So we haven't even put out a Midnight Tides episode yet. It has been fun just starting this book. We knew that it took place after we read the prologue and talking to Erikson, but to me, it feels like it makes sense to go this direction. So I don't know, maybe some people find that off-putting, but I guess I haven't felt that way so far.
And, like I've said in the past, for whatever reason, I just imagine Troll Sengar and Monako Chem and Anrak the Broken, and Ibra Golan, I think, just chilling at the first throne, and Troll's just telling him the sad story. So that's what I'm imagining right now, like, is him just talking Midnight Tides, right? So yeah.
Well, should we dive in here? I guess, Justin, I don't remember it's been a while since we've recorded together.
Yeah.
Which one of us you want me to do the patrons and you take the epigraph?
Yep, because you have the first section now.
All right. Shout out to our patrons. Thanks, everybody. In order of subscription, we've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Itrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Facing the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Gestriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, Steve Bottle Cags, The Mortal Sam, and John I'd Kill the Mule. Thanks, everybody. It's good to say the names again here, and Putter, hopefully maybe there's some names that maybe you smile. I'm sure you recognize a lot of the nicknames. We know some, but obviously not all. So
awesome. Well, now we'll move on to chapter 2's epigraph. Mistress to these footprints, lover to the wake of where he has just passed, for the path he wanders is between us all. The sweet taste of loss feeds every mountain stream, failing ice down to seas, warm as blood, threading thinner dreams, for where he leads her has lost its bones, and the trail he walks is flesh without life, and the sea remembers nothing. Lay of the ancient holds, Fisher Keltoth.
I really like that last line. I don't know what it is about it, but I like that.
The sea remembers nothing.
The sea remembers nothing. Epigraphs always give me this like weird sense of I think I know, but then I actually don't know.
I don't know a lot, so
some are more obvious than others, but yeah.
Erickson kind of like does that at times where he'll throw something really, really important in, but we're not smart enough to know it at the time. And then after a while, we're like, oh yeah, you said that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll start off the beginning of the chapter here. Behind Serapedic, in the misty haze, was the innermost part of the Reach Inlet. All other sides were surrounded by mountains. As the wind blew past her, it smelled of ice and decay, and she drew her furs closer as she watched the train behind her. There were 3 solid wagons pushed by a swarm of Nerek who wore little clothing despite the cold. Grouped around each wagon, pulling with ropes and pushing them, even throwing their bodies down to keep them from rolling backwards. In the wagons, they contained 90 iron ingots, 30 to each wagon, but not the famed Letheri steel, since the sale of that beyond their borders was forbidden, but of the next highest grade, which was virtually free from impurities, and they were as long as Saren's arm and twice as thick. Even with the cold, the Nerek worked half naked and sweating. For their hard labor, and even possibly their death, Baruch the Pale paid them 2 docks a day. Serapedic was Baruch's acquisitor, who was granted passage into the Edur lands, sanctioned by the last treaty, for no merchant was allowed into Edur lands without an acquisitor. So the bidding for Pedic and the other 6 acquisitors had been high. Saren went highest, and now Baruch owned her, or at least her services as a guide and finder. She was in the 6th year of her contract. 4 remained, maybe. She looked ahead, and they were less than 100 paces of elevation from the tree line, filled with century-old trees and boulders that were dragged down by rivers of ice in the past. The wind could do nothing but howl past. The first wagon made it to level ground. The Nerek secured it, and then went to help their kinsmen bring up the others. Baruch the Pale exited the first wagon, taking in the scenery. He spoke to Saren and said he would etch this into his skull that would join many others. He yelled at the Nerek, telling it to find his foreman because they would camp here. He needed a fire and meals prepared. Saren set her pack down and walked away, and soon came to the first of the old shrines. The path widened and stretched, and stretches of scraped bedrock reached out, and then were cut sheer. On each flat, there were boulders placed to form a full outline of a ship, both prow and stern pointed. marked with upright menhirs. The prow stones carved into the likeness of Father Shadow, but the winds had ground the details away. Whoever originally occupied the two flanking ships had left long ago, but the bedrock within was strangely stained. The sheer walls of rock retained some of their ancient power, smooth and black and translucent in the manner of thin, smoky obsidian. Shapes moved behind them, as if the mountains had been hollowed out, and each panel was a kind of window revealing a mysterious, eternal world within, a world that knew nothing of the outside. The translucent obsidian made it hard for Sarah to focus, just as it had the other times she had been here, but the mystery is what drew her. Stepping carefully around the stern of the ship, she approached the eastern panel, removed her glove, and touched the smooth stone. It was warm and took the stiffness from her fingers, and the ache left her joints, a secret she kept to herself. She had discovered this the first time she touched the rock. A lifetime in these hard lands stole the suppleness from a body, made bones brittle, and endless rock sent shocks of pain through the back and spine with each step one took. The Narek, the tribe that lived here before bending to the Letheri king, believed they were children of a woman and a serpent, and that the serpent still lived within the body, the gentle curve of the spine and its head hiding in the middle of the brain. However, the mountains hated the serpent and wanted to drag it down and return it to its belly, slithering on its belly and curled between rocks. And so in the course of a life, the serpent was made to bow, bend, and twist. The Nurek buried their dead beneath flat stones, or at least they used to, until the king's edict forced them to take the fate of the holds. Saren thought now that they leave the bodies of their kin where they fall, even to the point of abandoning their huts. She remembered years back, and looking at a plateau where the Nerek lived, the village had lost all recognition and merged into chaos. One out of every 3 or 4 huts had been abandoned due to death, be it disease, old age, alcohol, white nectar, or durhang. Children wandered unattended, trailed by feral rats that had bred uncontrollably and now were too festered with disease to eat. The Nerek people were destroyed. They had no way to climb out of the pit they were in. Their homeland was an overgrown cemetery, and the Letheri cities promised only debt. They were given no sympathy. While the Letheri way of life was a hard one, it was the only way of civilization. But the proof was that they thrived while all others around them stumbled and remained weak. The wind could no longer touch Fedek. The warmth of the stone flowed through her. With her eyes closed, she put her forehead to the rock. She wondered who was within, perhaps ancestral Edur, as the Hiroth claim, but if that was the case, why could they see no more clearly than herself? Vague shapes moving here and there, just as lost as the Narek children in the dying villages. However, she had her own theory and held to them. They are sentinels of futility, equators of the absurd, reflections of ourselves forever trapped in aimless repetition, forever indistinct, for that is all we can manage when we look upon ourselves, upon our lives. Sensation, memories, and experiences, the fetid soil in which thoughts take root, pale flowers beneath an empty sky. If she was able, she would sink into the stone and walk among the shapes forever, looking out perhaps every now and then, not seeing stunted trees or the occasional passerby, only seeing the wind, the ever howling wind. Well, an interesting beginning to this chapter for sure.
Why do you say it's interesting?
Well, the last bit here was pretty interesting, I thought, but we can just start from the top here with what I had for thoughts. When I first read Baruch the Pale, I had to think like really hard, like Baruch, like how is he here? But I mean, the name is just similar to Baruch, but then it just, he's paying these guys slave labor wages, it seems, basically next to nothing for the work that these people are doing. Like Justin and I were talking about this before you came on, but we kind of envision this 2 different ways. It talks about how the Nerek would throw their bodies in the way of a wagon to keep it from rolling back. And I imagine that they die when they did that, and Justin felt a little differently. Not sure if you have any insight to that, Putter, or That was just kind of one of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, this is a book about colonization, and I mean, the reason Erickson, like the inspiration why he wrote this was basically if the Lakota, rebelled basically against the 7th Cavalry, what would happen if they had actually won and then they marched on Washington? So he had a lot of ideas going here about the idea of colonization, what it was kind of like back then. But we also kind of get to see a little bit more of the dynamic of this place that we're in, that it's, again, Erickson doing his thing about this is, it's a bleak place to be in. I would never want to be in this spot being paid these wages, and it's normal. He brushes by it. When you read it the first time, you read over and you're like, oh, okay, they got paid some money. And no, I mean, this was nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any, I guess, idea. $2 a day doesn't sound like much, but we don't have any, I guess, idea what that equates to or anything. But
Nothing.
Right. I mean, we get a little bit of that later on,
but still not a lot. I mean,
No.
there's a lot of different terms that they're using for their currency and stuff, but it doesn't really mean anything to us, at least at this point.
No.
My next thought here, men here, I wasn't familiar with that word, but I had to look it up. It is a large, upright, megalithic stone, often found alone or in alignments. Maybe you guys knew that. Wasn't something I knew, but
Yeah, Stonehenge is a menhir.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I just had not heard the word.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, it ties into Erickson being a a paleontologist or what is
Archaeologist.
it? Archaeologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just throws it in there.
Love it. I love it.
It worked.
I thought it was interesting that these rocks are shaped like two ships.
It made me think of what the heck were the people in Memories of Ice? I know it wasn't them, but that's what it made me think of at first. I can't remember what
The
race that was.
Barghast.
Barghast, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on to your next one. I think I have a thought.
Okay. So we get this line, she's like looking at this rock, and it's almost like a window, and shapes move behind them. And I'm just like, what the heck is this? And shadows were the only thing that came into my mind. While it feels kind of obvious, I guess, it also doesn't really give me that much. Yeah, what's your thought, Justin? Is it on this or is it something else?
It's on this. Every time I would read this section, when she places her hand on these rocks that have shapes moving within them, she says that she feels a warmth, right? And then even later on, at the very end, she wondered who was within, perhaps ancestral Edur, as the Heroth claim. But if that was the case, why could they see no more clearly than herself? Her own theory that she had, they were sentinels of futility, inquisitors of the absurd, reflections of ourselves forever trapped in aimless repetition. Right? So I'm taking warmth, aimless repetition, forever indistinct memories and experiences. And those things make me immediately think of Seven Cities and the Talani Mass. So I think that these rocks, right? And even somewhere in this section or in this chapter, they talk about the First Empire.
Yeah, that was one of my later sections.
Yeah. So it just, again, kind of and then there was even something else in this chapter. Again, I can't specifically say where, but I know that I think it was in one of my sections, or maybe it might have been one of yours. But they talk about they have been left isolated. These stones have something to do, a connection with Seven Cities or the Talani Mass in some way, shape, or form.
See, the first time I read this, I didn't think about that. I was on a completely other level, and I started thinking, and again, this is just like when I first read it, because I had to, reread some of this stuff because it's been a while, but some of it comes up, and I'm thinking ancient power, smooth, translucent, manner of thin, smoky obsidian, shapes moving behind it. That's the thing that's like, what does that mean? And don't want to go on a tangent here, but I mean, you feel this like uncertainty when you read something like that. And Erickson's like, okay, maybe this is something important. Like, I don't know what exactly this is, but I have like thoughts about it. And then it just, you get turned on something. But the first time that I read this, I'm thinking, well, I'm going back to Rake, basically, Animander Rake and his sword. That's what I'm thinking of, this ancient, smooth black blade that it's translucent and there's shapes moving behind them. And I'm thinking, is she touching something? And does she feel some type of connection to Dragnipur, the blade, and all the people all the lives Rake has taken? Is there any type of connection to those souls or the people in that sword? I don't know.
That's interesting.
That is
I would never
interesting.
have thought about that. Never.
No, me neither. Is that gentle foreshadowing for us?
No,
Oh.
that was just what I would.
Those
When
are
I
just
first
your
read
thoughts.
it, no, when I first read it, I was like, shapes moving behind them. I was like, I don't know anything right now of like shapes being moved around. I was either thinking one or two things. I was like, this is like a foreshadow of like Rake's blade and the souls that he's taken, or this has something to do with like the Jag Hut and this long loss in these, I don't know, these ice holds or something like that. It has some type of connection with something like that.
How long has it been since you read Midnight Tides the first time?
Oh man, I would say it's been a few months for sure. It hasn't been a full year, I don't think,
Okay.
because I finished the series a few months ago, and obviously I was like, no, I need to reread this because like it's too good and nothing's gonna beat it. So I was like, I'm just gonna reread it then, because I feel like I want to explore some of the other stuff like in the series. So I read the first 10 and I was like, no, I'm going to go back because I want more information, because I feel like a lot of the stuff goes over the head. And so I'm like going through the reread and I'm like finishing up Memories of Ice right now, basically. It's so good.
I thought you were going to say it'd been like 3 or 4 years or something, and I was like, dang, I'm really impressed that you still remember how you felt, what you were thinking at that time.
No, it hasn't been too long.
Next thought here, just she's touching the stone, getting the warmth and stuff, and she says it was a secret that she kept to herself. And I'm kind of wondering, like, well, is this the secret she thinks it is, or do others know? Obviously, we didn't see anybody else touching them, but
I want to bring up something about this too, because rereading some of this stuff, what Erickson does really, really well, and I think where a lot of people can get turned off with this series is we're seeing this play out in their first person point of view, kind of, or it feels like that. But we're also seeing that themselves, whoever we're observing at the time, they might not know what's actually going on. So therefore, we don't know. But maybe other people that we read about in the book or in a different novel, maybe they do know. And I feel like this comes up a lot. The more we read Erickson, is that he'll like node to this idea that, hey, so-and-so is oblivious to this thing, but everybody else somehow knows this. And as a reader, I feel like that's the same thing that I go through too, reading this. I'm like, man, this person has no clue what's going on, or why are they acting like this and making these choices when everybody else are making completely different choices. And it's really just, they don't know. We're seeing it through their lens and they don't know what's going on, or they don't know how to manage or maneuver this situation. And that's just them, but everybody else might. And so we get different perspectives, and it was a secret she kept to herself. I don't know. Is that like a personality trait? Is she just, shameful or guilty about something that she does know? Or is something else, influencing her thoughts? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, I mean, when I'm reading, I just generally assume that if it says the character knows something, then I just assume that they do, I don't always look past that maybe set up or something like that. The white nectar, I think it must have been chapter 1 that this came up before. I don't know why. Like, I guess we kind of get a little bit more info later on, but it's obviously different than alcohol, but must somehow be poisonous to an extent too, or addicting, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how prevalent that's going to be as we go throughout the book here.
It makes me think of white Peralt. I don't know why. It just does. Which I know is like a spider venom. Are they like processing white Peralt and now it's white nectar?
Let's just harvest spiders, man.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying. It makes me think of white Peralt. So,
And I'll say this is like super beneficial. Like I'm appreciative to be here and chat with some other people, because it is so beneficial to either read this alongside somebody or read it as a reread, however many times you need to reread it, because every single time you'll read the same passage and it's going to be a completely different experience, different thoughts, and it's really good to be able to bounce some things off, because a lot of this is going to go over the head, or you might think you know something, and then it's really, really good to bounce that.
It is a lot of fun. I mean, I would say probably for the most part we've agreed on things, but was it Memories of Ice we really disagreed on some things, or was it House of Chains?
It was Dead House Gates.
Dead House. Yeah.
We disagreed a lot.
Yeah.
On that one.
No, well, what was it? There was not long ago. There was one chapter in House of Chains. I feel like we disagreed a lot, and I can't remember what it was now. But I mean,
probably the end.
No, it wasn't that. It was before. I mean, yeah, I didn't like that, but that wasn't what I was thinking of. It is crazy, and I've said this before, but like Justin and I, we're both reading the same words, but there's times where we take very different things out of it. So then when I get to talk to him, he gets to talk to me, and we have these conversations, and it's just wild that we interpret things so differently from the same word sometimes. So, but it makes it a lot of fun.
That. Yeah, and you want that, especially when you're reading something like this. Like, you want to have that differentiation, because obviously, like everything that we've read so far, like it doesn't just mean that. There's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is what we enjoy.
Yeah.
So,
moving on to the diseased rats. And all I could think was like, well, maybe it's really not that bad if they're so diseased you can't eat them. I feel like it must be pretty bad situation if you're eating rats for food anyways, but maybe that's just like a delicacy to them. I don't know, but I wouldn't want to eat a rat.
It's a hilarious thing. I think Erickson's actually one of the funniest authors, because he says children wandered unattended. Okay, so nobody's around them, so they can just kind of wander off, trailed by feral rats. So they're being like walked around, like there's just rats, it's very nonchalant, it feels like, that had bred uncontrollably. That doesn't sound like a thing that should be like welcoming and that I would want to like have my kids around, right?
Right.
And now we're too festered with disease to eat. So as if it wasn't bad before, like they were okay to eat before, but now they're too festered with disease.
Yeah. I guess that's what happens when things get out of control. Let's see here. Yeah, the Narek people, I guess as I was reading this, I had sympathy for them, but they're not getting any from anybody else, right? The Letheri people. And it's just interesting, and it makes me think of like our real world, right? Like, if you don't work hard, nobody really cares. They don't care about you. And even if you do work hard enough, if you are pushing yourself, like trying to make things better, sometimes that's still not even enough then. And then, like, when I was reading this the first time, and probably when I was summarizing, it made me think about the theme of capitalism, which from when we talked to Steve, we kind of knew that was going to be a theme, and just talking to some of our other friends and stuff. And I don't know, to me, maybe it felt a little weird that that's where it hit at that point, because there's not really talking about money or anything at that point. It's just, these people are poor, nobody cares.
But on top of that, nobody cares, but they also caused the reason why they don't care. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let me just go like destroy your whole village and cut you down because we want your land. Oh, by the way, now you're slaves, so we don't care. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah. Last thought here. Saren Pettick, she's thinking, if she was she was able to put herself within this obsidian stone. She'd wander around and she wouldn't look at the trees or people walking by. She would just see the wind, the ever howling wind. And it's always weird. Like when we're summarizing, I have a thought, and like now I don't know if I really feel the same way as I did when I had this thought. But at the time, I thought maybe she just really hates her job or her life, or both, to have a thought like that she wants to be in there. But I guess maybe now I'm looking at that, and life's just less complicated than if you're in there, you don't have to worry about anything.
Right. Those shapes are free. They're doing whatever they want to. They're not dictated by anything. Or maybe they are. We don't know. But to her, her perspective.
And maybe this is like a really, really hopeless thing to like look at. If she was able, she would sink into the stone and walk among the shapes forever. So she's not able to, but if she would choose that over, I don't know, her life right now. Like you mentioned, I don't know, looking out perhaps every now and then, seeing sun and stars or occasional passerby. It's such a bleak way of looking through someone's eyes. It's really hopeless. Only seeing the wind, the ever howling wind. Like, can you imagine just looking at somebody and, I mean, they're just numb to everything, and just the only thing they like can recognize is just like the wind. Like how sad.
Yeah, not a sunrise, not a sunset, just trees shaking in the wind. That's all I had for the first section here. Guys, ready to move on?
For sure.
All right.
All right. Section 2. Seren Paddock heard the footsteps of Hull Bedict as he neared the campfire. Seren Paddock kept her gaze on the flames, watching as Baruch the Pale steadily got more drunk on a mix of wine and white nectar. She couldn't help but look at him with bitter amusement. Baruch carried with him secret instructions, a long list from other merchants, officials, and she assumed from the royal household itself. Whatever was on those instructions was killing the man. He had always liked his wine, but not with the seductive destroyer of white nectar. That was this journey's new fuel for the dwindling fires of Baruch's soul, and it would drown him as surely as the deep waters of the Reach Inlet. The Narek were swarming the visitor as if they were worshipping a god. She could imagine it in her mind, the image of the Narek surrounding Hull Bedict, and he would want to say that he was not a man worthy of such reverence. But Hull never said a thing. Baruch the Pale lifted his head and asked who it was that approached. Seren stated that it was Hull. Baruch licked his lips and said, "The Sentinel." Seren said yes and advised the man to not call Hull by that title, as he returned the king's reed a long time ago. Baruch laughed and said that he betrayed the Letheri people by doing so, and called Hull a poor, dishonorable fool, and took a swig of his wine. Hull had done as much as he could with the Narek and stepped into the firelight. He was wearing the fur of the white wolf of the north. Seren could see behind Hull's blank stare that he was elsewhere, and she was well aware that that place was not home. She had thought about him being as lost as flesh and bone, and said to Hull to take some warmth by the fire. Hull stared at her in his distracted way. Baruch was laughing and said that Hull would never feel that warmth through all that fur, and asked if Bedict was thirsty or hungry. Baruch offered some other things. Seren asks if Hull has come down the pass and asks if the snows were gone. Hull glanced over at the wagons and awkwardly replied that they would do. Seren asked where he was going, and he replied that he was going with her. Her brows rose, and Baruch was heard laughing, and then got up, nearly falling into the fire. He stated that the Narek would be excited and walked towards the wagons. Seren and Hull watched him leave, and Hull sat down and stretched his hands out to warm them by the fire. She pushed another log into the fire, and Hull asked if Baruch intended to remain a guest of the Harath until the great meeting. She shot him a look and said that this was what she thought, and asked if that was why he decided to accompany them. He said that this meeting would not be like the past meetings, as the Edur are no longer divided. The Warlock King reigns unchallenged. She agreed that everything has changed. Hull said that this must be why King Discanar sends Baruch the Pale. She said that Pale was a poor choice, and she doubts he'll remain sober enough to do much spying. Hull said that 7 merchant houses and 28 ships have descended upon the Kalak beds. Diskanar's delegation will claim that the hunting was unsanctioned and will denounce the slaughter. And then use that to say the old treaty is flawed, and for the slaughter of the seals, they'll simply throw gold at Hannah and Mosag's feet. She said nothing, as she knew he was right. Hall Bedict knew King Esgara Diskanar's mind, or rather the royal household, which weren't always the same thing. After a moment, she said there was more to it. Hall asked how so. She asked if he had not heard who was leading the delegation. He said that the mountains were silent on such matters. She nodded and said that it was Nephadas that was representing the king's interest. He said this was good, as the first eunuch was no fool. Seren stated that Nephadas would be sharing command with Prince Quillis Diskanar. Hall slowly turned to Seren and said that the queen had risen far then. Seren said that she has, and since the last time Hull had crossed her son, Quillis, he has changed little. The queen keeps him on a short leash, with the chancellor close to feed him sweet treats. She explains that it was rumored of the 7 merchant houses that defy the treaty is none other than Queen Janal. She heard Hull sneer as he said that if the chancellor dares not leave the palace, so he, the chancellor, sends Quillis, which is a mistake, as he doesn't know subtlety, being that Quillis is so suspicious of others, especially when things are said to him that he doesn't understand. One cannot negotiate when they are emotional. Seren said that this was hardly a secret. Hull spat in the fire and said that they don't care, and the queen has let the prince slip his leash, allowing Quillis to fuck it up and deliver insults in the face of Hannah and Mosag. Hull wonders if this is their plan. Did they truly invite war? Seren said that she did not know. Hull asked whose instructions Baruch the Pales carried. Serene said that she wasn't sure, but Baruch wasn't happy. They both fell silent then. Flashback to 12 years past. King Esgara Diskanar charged his favored Preda of the guard, Hull Bedict, with the role of sentinel. He was tasked with visiting the northern borders to observe the tribes who still dwelt within the mountains and forest. Talented as he was, he had been naive. What he thought was an epic quest for knowledge, the first step towards coexistence and peace, had in fact been the beginnings of conquest. Hull's reports on the Narek and the Farad and the Terathanol had been poured over by the minions of Chancellor Triben Gnol. Weaknesses had been rooted with those reports, and then in a series of conquests were brutally exploited. For Hull Bedict, who had forged bonds with the tribes, was there to witness all the brutality delivered. No honorable soul could survive what was seen, especially when he was the one responsible for it. To this day, the Narek still worshipped him, as well as the other tribes, where few members survived the slaughter. He now sat silent beside Seren. One of his guards had returned the king's reed to the capital. He was no longer the sentinel, nor would he return to the Southlands, but rather walk into the mountains. Seren had first met Hull 8 years ago, a day out from High Fort, reduced to a little more than a scavenging animal. She had brought him back, at least somewhat. She thought it was far less noble than it first seemed. Perhaps it would have been more noble had she not made use of him. She had given in to her own selfish needs, and there was nothing good about that. Seren wondered if Hull would ever forgive her. She wondered if she could forgive herself. Hull said that Baruch knows all that he needs to learn, and Baruch would tell him. She thought to himself that Baruch the Pale wouldn't do it on his own accord, though. She said out loud that regardless of his instructions, he remains a small player in this game, head of a merchant house and trait, with vast experience dealing with the Harath and the Apparay. And through her passage through either lands, Hull said that Mosag will send warriors after those ships, and the queen's interest in those merchant houses is about to take a beating. Seren said that the queen likely has anticipated some losses. While Hull was not as naive as he once was, she could see him struggling with the layers of intent and design at work here. He said that he is beginning to see the path the queen takes. He continued on, saying this was a curse, and they aren't so inclined to look ahead. Is it the path before them was any different than the one behind them? She thought to herself that it pays to be reminded of that. Every time she glanced back, she really should stop doing that. Man, it's been a minute. Woofda.
And people aren't going to see this, but I like that your computer must have auto-corrected Benedict to Benedict.
Yep.
And
Yep.
all I could think is like we should just call them eggs.
Call them eggs. Eggs Benedict.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a lot to remember that Benedict was not right. So,
I didn't catch it the first time, but then I was like, oh, okay.
and who knows? That could have been me too. Like just trying to summarize, right?
Sure.
Paul Benedict.
I mean, I was hearing you listening to it. I was like, I thought it was Benedict, though.
Yeah. Yeah, where's that Hollandaise sauce? Hollandaise sauce.
Nice.
Hollandaise. Ah! Just kidding. Okay. All right. First thought. And again, kind of similar to what you had at the end of your last section there, Derek. I completely understand what those instructions are now after reading this chapter a little bit more. But at the time of summary, I'm like, I know that there was no way of knowing, but I kind of wonder what is on the list. Because clearly it seems that it's driving him to drink.
Sometimes
So-
it'd be like that.
Yeah. But also kind of, I made a comment about the white nectar. Not quite as far as just it being a poison, but, you know, in chapter 1, they talked about white being evil and being that this is some type of flower or something, and it being white and a seductive destroyer. And I'm wondering if this has any relation to the white being evil bit.
Good catch. Could be.
I also thought that when I first read it. I was like, wait a minute. In the prologue, there was something about someone seeing a white, or maybe it was chapter 1. Someone seeing a white like bird fly over, some winged being. Now, if we remember from the prologue, well, there was some big stuff happening. And so we know there is something white here, and it's not usually the best thing. So yeah, when we hear the word white, my head instantly goes to that.
What am I missing from the prologue here that I'm not remembering right now?
Oh, and you, Utter, you had it. Like you
So
made me
in the
click.
prologue,
Yep.
yeah, prologue is epic, right? We see
Yeah.
Scavendari, Blood Eye, and Silchus Ruin basically have like one of the craziest betrayals in the series, basically. So he betrays him.
Yep.
Silchus Ruin betrays Scavendari. Now, Silchus, if you look up and see who the guy looks like, he's like all white.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
He has red
I was
eyes.
not remembering that.
I
He's
think
red eyes, and it notes to it like once or twice in there. But again, the thing we don't. Okay, he's white, but then it comes up again, something white. There's a white nectar. Okay, well now there's this like thing that's flying across the sea. Someone observes, and it's white. What's going on? Like what's with this white? And my first thought was like, dude, Silchus Ruin, he is white. Like he's known for that. And that's what I thought. I was like, something's stirring.
Yeah,
I
that was
never-
what I was not remembering on that. So thank you.
I
Then
don't know
again-
why I didn't put that together. Yeah, because
Then again, it could just be that it's like an alcoholic drink. I don't know.
But I mean, you would think that like, you know, Father Shadow.
So now is Silchus this bird?
Silchus is like, well, he's a soul taken, so he can transform into like this dragon, but his dragon is white, obviously, and he's white. He's a Tistandi. He's a relative to Animander Rake, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when someone mentions white, I'm like, oh, great.
I love his name. I just think it's a cool name.
Yeah. But then again, I could be like throwing just random thoughts, and this could just be like a really, really concentrated beverage amongst these native people. Because again, Erickson, he was driving towards this idea of the Lakota. Well, Native Americans, like, they didn't just have some wine. No, there was probably like, I'm thinking like in Lord of the Rings, I'm thinking like this is grog basically to them. Like this super addictive, really concentrated beverage, maybe that really has some like abilities, or you can kind of make it super strong, and it might be more effective on some people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. No, the Silchus. Yeah. Because you would imagine, right, that to cover up what Scandenbari had done, right, he would denounce anything white as evil, right, to try to hide the truth of what he did.
I don't have anything to add.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I guess it could be something along the lines of, how do I say this?
Indoctrination, manipulation,
Yeah,
fear mongering.
it could be. Yeah, I don't know.
We're just gonna have to read and find out.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I guess my next thought was when, Hull eventually is able to move away from the Narek worshiping him, and he finally steps into the firelight. I don't know what I was trying to say here, but I feel like, when Seren asks Hull about something and he like looks at the wagons and he's like, looks good. And then she was like, well, what do you intend on doing? And then he was like, join you. Didn't really kind of understand the association between joining their party and the wagons. Like, I thought that it was like an invitation to like go have sex or something like that. Like, ooh, wagons sound good. What are you doing? Joining you, or going with you or whatever. Like, I'm like, okay, that's strange.
I can kind of follow that a little bit because I was wondering when she talks about how she like used him for her own needs or whatever. I can't remember exactly how it was worded. I was kind of wondering if that's what that was trying to say, or I think it said she took advantage of him. Like, how did she take advantage of him? I felt like we were kind of led to think maybe it was sexual, but maybe it wasn't too. I don't know. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if he was in the woods and like starved, low on food or whatever, I don't know. But I can see that train of thought.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. There was I remember a lot of things not making sense when I was even summarizing, but so there may be a few comments, but I think he was just looking at the wagons, and him, announcing that he was joining them are just two separate thoughts. I'm not sure how there doesn't need to be a connection, I guess.
It's so early on too. Like we're just learning some of these characters. So we don't know really anything about them. Like I was saying, like we're just kind of in their shoes right now. So like other stuff that's going on, their past struggles, like maybe we'll get a little like hint towards that in some aspects, or maybe through someone else's eyes. Like as of right now, it's like, okay, he was excited and walked towards wagons. I guess we'll just have to like accept that he was excited.
Right. It's just the one thing that I don't not like or anything like that, but one thing that I don't know, I get a little uneasy about when I start a new book is that like I don't know shit. But at the end of the book, I'm like super confident on what's going, and like I'm understanding the themes, and like I feel like I'm an actual podcaster who's read it, versus at the beginning of the book, I'm like, I don't know shit. So yeah.
And this is also like the one that's like has no connection to anything. So it's like we're starting all over again.
For real? Like, I feel like there was a couple of things even in this chapter where I'm like, oh, that reminds me of Gardens of the Moon or other.
Yeah.
So
there's a few things in terms of like maybe like a setting, or, might nod to a character or two. But like this is like on a completely different continent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've only heard of Lethery through word of mouth through other characters. So,
and I'm with you on the whole. I want to know everything. Like I hate not knowing something. Mm-hmm. So I'm like the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Like give me it all. Give me the details. So like Malazan is like frustrating to read sometimes.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, give it to me all. I want the details. Let it pour all over my face. For sure.
You generally do a pretty good job with it.
I try. I really do try. This part where he said, Serena's asking, had he not heard who was leading the delegation? And he said that the mountains were silent on such matters. And it's such an interesting way to respond to this. But even again, like when I was summarizing, I'm like, I have no idea how to make heads or tails of this. But he walked into the mountains. He's been there for 8 years. So it's one of those things where he's probably used to the mountains talking to him, or he's having some type of, Wilson moment on the island where he's talking to inanimate objects and the mountains and that kind of type of personification. So,
And I
well,
took this a completely other way because I read this and I was like, the mountains were silent on such matters. And I'm like, I know Erickson doesn't throw fluff in there. Like this has some type of meaning to it.
mhm.
So one thing that like it hasn't really come up too much in this book so far up to this point is the idea of religion. I'm thinking, okay, well, this like these Tistadur and this continent, they might have different religions compared to, Genebacus or something like that. I mean, that would be my assumption. So, I mean, we're looking at the size of Earth here. So maybe there is this religion regarding, worshiping this land. I don't know. Maybe he's much more grounded in some aspects that they're silent in such matters, or maybe he's being patient and submitting to some higher being. I mean, like I said, I'm not sure, but I don't think Erickson is not saying something here.
I kind of
That's
thought
fair.
maybe it was just like the mountain tribes.
That probably makes both of those make more sense than mine did. So we'll take it. We'll take it. This part where they're talking about, they wonder about what their plan was and if they did truly invite war. And, being that it's rumored that the queen broke the treaty and is behind the slaughter of the seals and now sends her son, who has no ounce of negotiating skills, to negotiating with Hanam Mosag. I feel like they are inviting war or planning on starting a war, but can choose to claim ignorance for her son's foolishness. And we actually see this, a very similar type of attitude when they're later on in the chapter. It's interesting how, like, again, when I first read this chapter, and Derek and I were talking about it before you joined, Putter, but I didn't initially like it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. What's happening here? There's too many people. There's too many like plans and things being thrown out. But as I've summarized and I've reread the chapter, it actually makes sense and is a really good chapter.
It does. And like, I'll be honest, I no, this is not my favorite chapter in the whole book. I like chapter 1 better. Give me the Tistadur, give me this like clan like setting. And then we go to these and I'm like, who the heck are all these random people that I'm now being introduced to now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't care about their politics. Yeah.
It's like a different dynamic though, compared to like the other portion. I mean, obviously it's chapter 2. So Erickson he doesn't care about the idea of, you might not know this, you should know this. He's going to act like you know this already, and he's just throwing you in as if you already know what's going on. But it reminds me of like Memories of Ice. You have like a specific group of people that you're wanting to continue to follow and really well, and then you switch perspectives into something else that's who's this, why are they here, where is this place? And it's giving me like the same thing again, but like you said, as you continue to read on, it gets a little more fleshed out.
Yeah. So it's cool to know, based on all the different pieces, like what's happening, like what the king wants. There's some parts about where Bryce Bedict is kind of wondering who's on what side. And, through those pieces, you're kind of able to pick up what it is that everybody's goal is. This part where we get the flashback, and I just feel terrible for Hull, in the shitty position he was put in. And I don't quite understand why he's not more pissed. Like maybe I was expecting to see more emotion, but also, I mean, he's had 8 years to kind of cope with what he's done or what he was led to do, and maybe he's found some solace in the mountains, right?
I think he's just calculated. I mean, we know what he says at the end of the chapter,
Right.
and I think maybe he's just, he's got his plan, so he's just not going to let something distract him from that and screw it up, and he'll get his revenge. Is kind of how I
He
feel.
kind of has this weird like this je ne sais quoi about him, this like ominous feeling that okay, you're smarter than you're coming off of, and I don't want to say like he pushes his emotions down, but he manages them really well. Because like you were saying, he could act like this. Like I don't know why you're not more upset, but he's like there's like this patience about it it's kind of nice. I'm like, ooh.
He's just waiting for the right moment.
The strike. My next thought was the Narek still worshipped him. At the time, it just explains why the Narek were all over the dude as he approached the fire. He's revered, he's celebrated, because he essentially just got to know them, right? Like, he became one of them. Kind of tells you a lot about the tribes of the Taisidor, right? Like, they seem to be accepting, right? And how is that contrasted with the Lethery saying? The King's Read, I don't know if it's like spoiler or anything, but I'm wondering if that is supposed to be the observation that he documented of these Edur tribes. I wasn't quite sure what exactly the King's Read is. So I don't know if it's spoiler putter or if it's anything that you can elaborate on, but like I just imagined it as like the thing that he wrote the stuff down on, and one of his guards took it back to the capital instead of himself. And thus, the Chancellor was able to find weaknesses in his observations and blah, 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 blah. So,
Yeah. Well, you can keep reading.
okay, there. Fuck. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm just not exactly sure what that is, but as you've said, eventually we will find out. So cool. I will continue to just trust the process. And then spent 4 years in the mountain, and I kind of got the impression that Seren was saying that he was completely feral. It's kind of the way that it made it seem. To help bring him back, I get like Tarzan vibes from that,
Yeah.
But yeah, those were, I guess, all of the things that like popped out at me during that section. But yeah, it's interesting to see, at this point in time, some of the game pieces starting to be put on the table.
Felt like that was kind of a difficult section, but this next one, this was my favorite part of the chapter for sure.
Yeah.
If you guys are ready, then I will take it away here. Tahol Bedek said, 5 wings will buy you a grovel, and said he wondered how odd it is. Every god should have a throne, but wouldn't it also make sense that every throne is occupied? And if it isn't, who in their right mind decided it was a good idea to worship an empty throne? On a 3-legged stool, Bug stopped his knitting and inspected the shirt he was making. Tahol looked at his servant and said he was pretty sure his arms were the same length. Why does he keep working on this? Bug has no talent that he can see, but he still loves him. Bug started knitting again and said Tahol loved him not half as much as he loved himself. Tahol said there was no point in arguing that. The wind was blowing, which kept it cool and only smelled a little like the South Shore's stink flats. Beds and the stool were the only furniture on the roof of Tahol's home, while Bug slept below despite the heat and only came up when his work demanded enough light to see. Tahol thought to himself, that saved on lamp oil as whales were getting scarce and the oil was increasing in price. He reached to the plate Bug had set next to him. He said, more figs, another embarrassing trip to the public toilet coming up. He chewed the figs and watched the workers work on the eternal domicile, and it was purely accidental he had an unobstructed view of the palace going up in the heart of Letheris, and more satisfying with how the third height bridges framed it. He thought eternal domicile indeed, eternally unfinished. The building had been so tough to build that 4 of the architects had commit suicide and another had mysteriously died in a drainage pipe. It had been 17 years and counting, and now it looked like they were giving up on the 5th wing. He wanted Bug's expert opinion, and Bug's expertise that amounted to him rebuilding the hearth in the kitchen below. Only 22 bricks stacked into nearly a square, and would have been if 3 of the bricks hadn't come from the local cemetery. Those grave masons had particular dimensions they tried to hold to. In answer to Tehol's question, Bug squinted and looked up. 5 wings to the palace, the dome rising from the center, 4 tiers to the wings, except the one on the shore side, which only had 2. Work stopped when they learned that the clay beneath the foundation wasn't very solid, and the 5th wing was sinking. Bug said gravel. Drill into the ground. Into the clay every few paces, and fill the holes with gravel. Pack down with a driver, then cap them off and build the foundation on the pillars on top of them. No weight on the clay, and it has no reason to move. Tehol wanted to know where the heck he came up with that idea. Bug just said that's what he would do, but one would need to drill into the bedrock, otherwise it wouldn't work. It would even handle an earthquake since the gravel would be flexible. Tehol said it was an excellent idea. Should he get out of bed today? Bug said he didn't really have a reason to, or maybe he did. Tehol said he had better not be wasting his time with this. Bug said 3 women stopped by today. Tehol said he didn't know 3 women, and if he did, all 3 of them arriving at the same time would be cause for concern. Bug said they were new faces to him as well, so he didn't think Tehol knew them, and they are probably from another city. They have odd accents. Tehol asked if the women asked for him by name. Bug said not exactly. What they wanted to know was if this is the house where the man slept on the roof. Tehol said if that's what they asked, then they were definitely from another toad-squelching village. What else did they ask? The color of Bug's hair? Did they want to know their own names as well? Were they sisters? Did they share a single eyebrow? Bug said he didn't recall, but they were handsome women. Bug called them young and meaty, and it didn't sound like Tehol was interested in them. Tehol said servants shouldn't presume. Young and meaty? Was he sure they were women? Bug was certain because even eunuchs didn't have breasts as large as these women did. Tehol was standing on the edge of his bed and asked Bug if he was done with his shirt. He held it out and said just roll up the sleeve. Tehol said he could finally go out in public again. Bug said he hadn't even started on the pants yet. Tehol wasn't worried about that as he wrapped a sheet around himself and tucked the shirt into it. He told Bug he didn't want figs again for a while and to point him to the direction of the mountainlessly endowed sisters. Bug said Huldo's on Red Lane in the courtyard. Tehol said that was something. Did he think Huldo had forgotten? Bug said no, but he had been spending a lot of time at the drownings. Tehol asked if he had been winning or losing. Bug said losing. Tehol laughed and asked how he looked. Bug said how he managed to keep his muscles when he didn't do any work was beyond him. Tehol said it was a Bedic trait, and he should see Breeze. Under all his armor, he is still scrawny compared to Hull, and since he, Tehol, is the middle son, he is the perfect balance. Wit, physical prowess, and many talents. Bug said this was a fine and pathetic speech. Tehol said it was, and now he is going. He told Bug to clean the place up. They might have guests later. Bug said he might if he found the time. Tehol remembered that Bug had pants to make. Did he have enough wool? Bug said he could make one leg all the way down or both just short. Tehol said to make the pant with one leg all the way down. Bug said then he would need to find something to eat and drink. Tehol said how much could there be to clean? Hadn't they sold everything but the stool and the bed? Bug said not much, and again asked what they should eat and drink tonight. Tehol said something that needs to be cooked. Bug asked if he meant something that was better when cooked. or something that has to be cooked. Tehol said it didn't matter. Bug asked about wood, and Tehol said he wasn't eating. Bug interrupted him and said, "For the hearth." Tehol said they would find some, or his stool. That didn't really need 3 legs, did it? Tehol made his way out of the house and out into the street, which was empty except for 3 Nerek, a mother and 2 half-blood children. They had found a hole in the wall and just seemed to sleep. He kicked a rat that had been edging closer and wove his way through the crates that blocked the street. Beery's warehouse was always overstocked, and he thought the last reach of Call Street as his own personal compound. Chalice, the watchman of the yard, saw Tehol and told him he had a nice skirt. Tehol said he had lightened his step with the comet and that the city thrives. Chalice said that wasn't a change, excepting for the last time. Tehol said it was just a minor tug. Chalice said Beery still wanted his head in a barrel floating in the ocean. Chalice asked if it was a special occasion that he was here. It had been weeks. Tehol announced he had a date with 3 women. Chalice asked if he wanted his clout. Tehol said he wouldn't want to leave him defenseless. Chalice said his face was usually enough to scare others away. Other than the Nerek, they managed to get past him. Tehol asked if they were giving him trouble. He said no, and in fact, the rat count is way down. But after all, Tehol does know Beery. He replied, saying better than he knows himself, and that he should remind Beery of that. Tehol moved on and made his way down to the Downs market, where things started to open up, and there were plenty of useless things for sale that Tehol could see, and people bought things like crazy. He thought their civilization thrived on stupidity. Once he reached Red Lane, it was 30 paces to cross it and reached the entrance to Haldo's. He made his way back to the courtyard where the tables were full. These people didn't have the coin to participate in the activities that took place in the inner workings. Tehol thought it was just another example of what people would pay for. The 3 women at the table in the corner stood out not only for their obvious details, but they were also the only 3 women there. The one on the left was redheaded, with long hair, drinking from a clay bottle, and the middle woman with a hint of forayed blood, with dark brown or black hair. And the one on the other side, Tehol noticed, had nice legs, and she had a shaved head, and her eyes finally found Tehol. He smiled, and she sneered back in return. Uril, who was Haldo's main server, came over. Tehol said he was looking well and asked if Haldo was here. He kept it brief, as did most guests, because Uril stank and needed to bathe. Uril told him he was not. He was on the low walk at the drownings, and these 3 women had been here all morning. Tehol said to leave them to him. Uril was surprised. Tehol grabbed a chair, drug it over, and the bald woman asked what he wanted. Tehol said that was his question to ask. His servant had told him they had visited earlier in the day. He introduced himself as Tehol Bedict, the man who sleeps on the roof. They all looked at him and were surprised he was the one sleeping on the roof. Tehol didn't understand why that surprised everyone. He continued and said based on their accent, he figured they were from the island, and he didn't know anyone from there, so he didn't know them. However, he thinks he would like to know them. The redhead said they made a mistake. The bald woman said they should have anticipated a certain amount of mockery. The redhead said he didn't even have pants. Well, the dark-haired woman said his arms were lopsided. Tehol said it was just the sleeves. She said she didn't like him, and the bald woman said that was fine. They weren't going to bet him. Tehol was crushed. The redhead said yes, he would be. One of the women said they would be crazy to bet him on the roof anyways, and named the bald woman Shand. Shand spoke to Hedgen that this was business and sentiments had no place in business. Hedgen replied, saying, "You can't trust somebody you don't like." Shand said, "Of course you could." While the third woman, named Risar, said it was his reputation she wasn't happy with. Shand said it's his reputation that brought them here. Tehol clapped his hands once and said, "Excellent." Risar with the red hair, Hedgen with the forayed blood, and Shand with no hair. He was content with that and said goodbye. They told him to sit back down. Shand said that was more like it, and that they know about him and what had happened. and they want him to do it again. But he has to be brave enough to go all the way through with it. Shan said she and the 2 other women would be his courage. They need to leave before the server comes back. They had bought a building. They can talk there. It doesn't smell. Tahol said that was a relief, and the 3 women stood up, but he didn't. Hedjun said she told Shand it wasn't going to work. He had nothing inside him. Shand said it would work. Tahol agreed with Hedjun and said it wouldn't work. Shand said they knew where the money went. Tahol said it wasn't a secret. Rags to riches. He just lost it. Shand said that wasn't true. They knew. Tahol butted in, saying they were acting as if they knew something. Shand said they were from the islands. Tahol said, but not those islands. And she said, of course not. Who would go there? And that's what he was counting on. Tahol got up and said, the saying was 5 wings will buy you a grovel. They went and bought a building. Shand said he would do, because if word got out, Hull would kill him. Tahol said his brother knows nothing about it. He enjoyed their silence and thought to himself that they now knew how he felt. That was a pretty long section, but it was fun and pretty funny.
I loved the section. It was so hilarious. Like, imagining Tahol just talking to Bug without any pants on at the very beginning. It's just like, dude, your wiener's out.
Tahol and Bug are probably one of the best duos in the whole series.
Okay. I am starting to see that for sure.
Yeah. This is also like, I think Erickson's like one of his funniest books. That's a pretty like universal thing here, is that like this they're so funny.
There definitely was a lot of humor in this section specifically.
Well, it's I think in the first section of chapter 1, and I assume that this is Troll Sengar's voice, but it goes, here then is the tale between the swish of the tides, when giants knelt down and became mountains, when they fell scattered on the land like the ballast stones of the sky, yet could not hold fast against the rising dawn. Between the swish of the tides, we will speak of one such giant, because the tale hides within his own, and because it amuses. So, like, he's already telling us that exact thing. And I think I called that out, too.
Yeah, that goes back to the idea that, like, it's notated. Like, there's a mention of it. We don't know what it is. Later on, you're like, oh, that's what that meant.
Yeah. There's so many, like, funny parts. And like, even as you were summarizing, like, again, the memories, the images that I had conjured up while reading it and summarizing it, just make me chuckle every time.
Oh yeah, I definitely, like, when I read this chapter the first time, I definitely chuckled out loud a few times, which I think is kind of a rare thing reading books like that happens. But you're like, oh, that stool doesn't really need 3 legs, does it? And you're just like, what the hell? Like, come on.
Right. Yeah.
My first thought here, just right off the bat, he says every god should have a throne, but wouldn't it also make sense that every throne is occupied? And I was like, well, yeah, that's a fair question, and it makes sense to me. Who decided to worship an empty throne? Yeah, I don't know.
I'm right, but this is assuming that the gods don't play games. So yeah, it makes sense, like logically dictate that, like, one throne, one god, right? But we're not accounting for greed.
Fair.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. Then we get a description of the eternal domicile, and I'm trying to imagine it like, so it says 5 wings to the palace, the dome rising from the center. So okay, like the wings are like, things sticking out from the side from the center, and then 4 tiers. So like by tiers, would that be levels? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess that I can kind of visualize that a little bit, but I had a hard time with that as I was reading it the first time. Like, I don't really understand what this is supposed to look like.
What does this say about the Letheri people?
They're greedy. I mean, they've been trying to build this place for damn near 20 years, right? And stubborn. They're still doing it. Well,
and they've 4 architects that have committed suicide. and some have like mysteriously died. It doesn't seem like they are focused on knowledge at all, right? I mean, Bug gives to Hall the solution to this problem. They've had 4 architects kill themselves, and it doesn't seem like they value knowledge.
It's hard to talk about some things
Without spoiling.
Yeah, like I'll never spoil something like this, but it makes you also question of like, is Bug like this really smart guy and everybody else is dumb, or is something happening on like who is like how does he just know this answer?
That's interesting. I didn't really think about that because he was kind of nonchalant about like his answers. Like, yeah, you just drill a hole, fill it with some gravel. Like, yeah, everybody should know that.
Yeah, it like gives me Idiocracy vibes, right? You know, where Bug is just average intelligence, right? But everyone else around him is insanely dumb, you know?
On the outside, it seems like such a simple solution, but like on the inside, like everybody's got their own desires and their own opinions about stuff and they can't agree on something. And he's just like, why don't you guys just do it like this? And he's like, you know what? That's a great idea. But nobody's going to agree to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's just the thing that I love about Erickson and the way that he writes is that like he doesn't immediately just spell it out for you. He paints you a picture and then you interpret that meaning. And I think that's what I love about it so much. Is because I don't get it at first, but eventually I do.
It's all implied.
Yeah.
And that was in an interview that I had watched about like Erickson itself. Is like a lot of people say that like his characters, he doesn't have good characterization, but really it's all implied. So it's like walking past somebody on the street and just for hypothetical, reasoning here, you see somebody with sagging pants, holes in their jeans, all tatted up and bags under their eyes. Well, you're thinking something immediately and you're associating it to something right off the bat. And that's what it is. It's implied.
Right.
It's not, I'm not going to tell you that this person has this background. You can figure it out yourself.
Right.
And it may not be what you think, which I guess, like you said, would be implied.
Right. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's a stab at the judgmental and subconscious bias culture that humans just innately have.
My next thought here, where Tahol and Bug are talking about him making pants. It's like, I can make one regular leg, or they could be some like booty shorts, that whole thing just cracked me up so hard. Like I feel like common sense would be like, okay, just make the shorts, because how ridiculous are you going to look with just one leg?
Booty shorts. I don't know. I would rather do the booty shorts, but
I don't know.
But then he takes a towel or a sheet or something and just wraps it around him. Like
he's got a toga.
But it's not like over the shoulder toga. No, it's just like a bath towel wrapped around your waist.
Yeah.
I almost kind of wonder, based on things that happen near the end of the chapter, if this is just not a facade.
How do you mean?
If everything that he's doing is just an act to make him look like he went riches to rags.
Tahol?
Yeah.
Oh, he's definitely scammy, I think.
Would you compare it to would you think he's smarter than like most? Or are you just saying he's smarter than like everyone around him? Are you saying he's like something more?
Well, I mean, in one of the sections later on, they talk about how he was able to have his debt written off, or not debt, but like he lost his peak, right? He lost his whatever amount that comes to. He was able to convince them to write it off as like a loss, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's just the fact that he was able to get so rich so fast by playing a game and exploiting the Letheri makes me feel like he didn't lose it. He still has it.
It almost makes me put 2 and 2 together and almost like compare him to like a Kruppa.
Yep.
Like he's actually like maybe the smartest guy in the room.
Well, and I mean, he even says it, right? Like he's the perfect balance between, him and his other brothers, which again just reminds me of the Teist races altogether, right? Like you've got light, dark, and shadow. Shadow is a perfect blend of light and dark, right? So I keep seeing this pattern of like siblings who share or resemble the Teist races.
Keep that thought.
Well, we talked to Erickson about that.
Yeah, and he was completely baffled by it. He was 100% baffled that I was bringing that up. He was like, I didn't intend to do that. Well, I forget the elegant way that he said it, but yeah, okay.
I think he just said he didn't realize it, but he didn't know if it was true or not, and he told you just to, keep looking as we go for that.
So is that just like he didn't want to spoil anything for us, so he gave us the to whole?
I mean, could be.
Damn it. I thought I had like an answer. Shit. Fair enough.
Next thought, Chalice asked if he wanted his clout. I've only ever heard that word used as like in like, oh, you're like bragging, like trying to get clout, that type of thing. And I even like Googled it quick, and I didn't look real hard, but obviously in this sense, must be like a club or something, some sort of weapon. And that just kind of threw me off as I was reading because I hadn't heard it used that way before.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I was definitely unsure of what that meant.
Just context, I guess. But the parade, we get a little bit here with the one woman, but I mean, I think that's basically our first introduction to that like race of people or that geographic area. I mean, we haven't really seen much from that.
Yeah, and this whole like concept of the islands, I don't think that it's been mentioned before. So I'm like, of course, looking at the map, at the beginning of the front of the book, and I definitely see some islands. So I'm assuming that's what they mean. Even at the end of the section, they're like, but not those islands, So, like, okay.
Tehol, he gets to the table or he gets to the bar or whatever they're at, and he smiles at the women, and one of them just sneers back, and I'm like, well, dang, he's off to a hot start here with these ladies, so I'm sure it's only going to get better from here.
He's very smooth with it.
Yeah. And then what I thought was funny is like later on when they disappoint him, when they're like, well, we're not going to bet him, and then he gets like crushed, right? And then one of them's like, yeah, he would be, So it's like, oh, damn, you are very forward. Sounds good.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought of this as I was summarizing the chapter, but like I just had this like thought, like Bedict, like his bed is on the roof or attic, right? And I'm sure that's not at all like where the name came from. I don't know. It was just one of those kind of random things that popped into my head.
To kind of go off on that though, like because you mentioned naming, I don't know if you guys have ever, like, I guess, known about like Erickson's like inspirations to like writing this series.
We've heard Glenn Cook's Black Company, but I feel like that's all I can recall.
Yeah, I mean that's the answer there.
Oh.
Is Glenn Cook has some of the funniest names. There's a guy in there named Croker. And you kind of, if you guys end up reading Black Company, you'll see some definite, like there's meanings to names have meanings, and there's like a lot of power to them. So yeah, I mean the names aren't just because.
Good to know.
Somebody did tell us Croker, or I've heard that somewhere else. I can't remember from where, but when you mentioned that rang a bell. I do remember that. I haven't read Black Company, but yeah.
I haven't read it yet.
Oh, do you?
Well,
yeah.
I've only read the first one, but yeah, it's pretty clear to see where he got some inspiration from, at least.
Okay.
Maybe you'll have to read it, Justin.
Ooh.
See, Shan said it was his reputation that brought them here. Just bad joke here. His reputation made 3 women come. I'll just see myself out now. I was looking at that comment. I'm like, what the heck was I thinking there? I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a naughty thought for sure.
Sometimes the intrusive thoughts win. What was so we got Shan, but what was the one's hound? There's a hound that had a name that was kind of similar.
Shan, no D.
Okay, I couldn't remember what it was. There is way too many names that are like too similar here, and it's just like obviously like I remember it's a hound. It's not another person or anything, but
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen Shan since I think Deadhouse Gates, because wasn't she the one that like helped them go through Tremolor?
or was it blind?
I know there was two of them that like helped, but I'm pretty sure it was Shan.
You could be right. I do not remember. But Shan, they're having their conversation, and Shan says they knew where the money went. Well, maybe this is why he has a house with nothing in it now. But like you guys were talking, maybe it's just kind of a front to appear that way. I definitely, in the later part of this chapter, I definitely have some thoughts on.
Well, on this note, with the whole like knew where the money went, this is where Shan. So we've got like the three women basically, Hejun, the R word, and Shan basically. They knew where the money went, but it's almost like Tahol does or doesn't. We don't know, but they obviously know something about Tahol, but we don't actually know anything about it. We know that this guy is like extremely frugal though, but apparently there's like a lot of money somewhere.
I feel like he's playing dumb. I don't know how you feel, Justin, but
do you have any ideas as to where this money is or like where it came from?
No, I don't.
I got the sense that he was betting or playing games of some kind.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm surprised that you guys didn't underline it on this one with the drownings.
I wasn't sure what that meant. Like,
yeah, I wasn't either. What I thought he was doing is I thought he was like manipulating like a stock market or something to that effect. It was how he made his money.
Basically, like illegally doing it.
Yeah, and that's what these three women want is they want him to do it again, but on a larger scale to tank the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this have to do with drowning?
Well, it's the drownings. It's like a criminal punishment that happens. So like depending on your crime that you do, there's like the canal right in the city of Letheris, and the basically however heavy like your crime is, you pay for it in the fine for it. So you basically the criminal is tied to like the amount of coin like in weight, and they're told to basically go across the canal. But obviously like a crime is pretty hefty in weight and amount of money, so nobody ever really survives.
Damn, that's dark.
Wait. How did you decipher this from this?
So, well, it's in the thing, like just the drownings. So like everything that's like important or might be important is like capitalized. If you notice, like if there's a name, it's like capitalized,
right,
or like an event or city. So the drownings, if you scroll up in this, like the drownings are capitalized. So like I instantly look like drownings Malazan, and it pulls up of like what exactly this is. But yeah, it's basically just being like tied to cinder block and weight of coin for your punishment, told to swim across this canal, and you end up drowning.
Damn.
I didn't really know what the drownings was. I thought it was just kind of like a place. I didn't realize there was like that was like where you were punished.
And it's like this like public like thing. Like it's like a coliseum, right?
So that's why
it's just a public execution.
That's why what's his name was down at the docks looking at the drownings, right? Or watching the drownings.
Yeah.
Because he was mentioning something about winning or losing.
They bet on like if they're going to make it or not.
Interesting.
So like, I would always be taking the under. He's not making it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's fair. One thing that I think Derek and I do well is when we don't understand something, we don't go to the internet because we don't want something else to like inadvertently get revealed before we're there. So we appreciate you. That makes a lot more sense now.
No, I mean, I'm with you with that. Like I'm also pretty hesitant. That's the last option I will go to if I can find it somewhere else.
Yeah. No, that's fucking cool and dark. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But people are usually pretty good. Like if we question something, like you gave us an answer on that tells us without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
didn't actually know like people were down there drowning.
Damn. Okay. Well, that makes the stakes a lot more higher. All right. Cool.
So Shan said he's going to do this, right? Because if he didn't, they would tell Hull and he would kill him. I don't know. Like, what do you think he did that was bad enough his brother would kill him if he found out? Like, he didn't share the money that he had?
No, he bought islands and he allowed some of the Edur to take residence there to rebuild.
I missed that then.
Yeah. It's not in this section. It's in my last one. But that's essentially what he did. And Hull didn't know. Hull doesn't know that he did that. Because obviously that is against, well, I don't know if it's really against the king's wishes, but it's definitely against people within the king's entourage wishes.
There's a lot of like what I'm noticing, even just within the last like chapter in this chapter, is there's a lot of like brotherly disconnect. It feels like there's a lot of like in terms of family, there's a lot of disconnect and corruption when it comes to someone's family or their bloodline. And sometimes that has a negative effect.
Right. How much does the Hull know about Hull, right? Like, does he know that he went and lived in the mountains and became feral?
Another fair question. That's all I got for that section. Unless you guys got anything else.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm ready if you're ready there.
All right. The man before Brius Benedict was saying that Hull may prove to be a problem. Bryce was lost in thought until the first eunuch, Nephatus, called his name to get his attention. Bryce responded that he is at a loss as to how to respond, as he hasn't seen or spoken with his brother in years. Nor would he be accompanying the delegation. Eunuch Nephatus turned away and walked towards his chair behind the massive desk in the chamber of his office. He sat and told Bryce to be at ease and that he had much respect for Hull. Nephatus admits that he admires Hull's beliefs and even understands the motivations to his choices in the past. Bryce said that Nephatus was further down the path than he, as he understands virtually nothing of his brother/brothers, and it has always been that way. Nephatus said that families are odd things. His own experience with family was small, but in that it allowed him to observe other familiar relationships with a keen eye. He looked up and looked at Bryce. I don't know how to say his name. Bryce asked Benedict if he could make a comment or two. Bryce asked for forgiveness before being waved silent as Nephatus apologized that he wasn't explaining himself well. He goes on to explain that the great meeting looms ahead, and as he understands it, Hull has joined Baruch the Pale and Serene Padak on the trail to Harath lands. It was his understanding that Baruch was given a set of instructions, none given by him, Nephatus. It was likely that those instructions were not in the best interest of the king, but rather contradictory. He is concerned that Hull may misunderstand. Bryce finishes the sentence by stating that Baruch acts on behalf of King Discanar. The eunuch said yes, and Bryce said that if this was the case, then Hull would seek to counter the merchant. Nephatus sighed in agreement. Bryce continued saying that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, though. Nephatus agreed again. Bryce said that unless the eunuch, as the king's official representative, was to counter Baruch in his own way, to deflect the interests Baruch has been tasked with presenting to the Edur. The eunuch gave a small hint of a smile. That's all it took for Bryce to understand. He looked past the eunuch to the window behind. Clouds swarmed through the bubbled glass. Bryce said that that wasn't one of Hull's strengths. Nephatus agreed and asked what Bryce knew of the Inquisitor named Serene Padak. Bryce replied that he only knew of her reputation. Nephatus stated that one must wonder, as she is not blind, nor unthinking. Bryce said that he could imagine, and said that a few Inquisitors are blind or unthinking. The eunuch thanks Bryce for his time and stands up, indicating that the meeting was at an end. He asks Bryce how it felt to be named the king's champion. Bryce responded that he was doing well enough. Nefata said that as one of the king's advisors, he was content with the choice in naming Bryce the king's champion. He thought to himself why Nefatus felt the need to remind him. He said to the first eunuch that he remains honored by the king's faith. Bryce turned and strode from the office. A part of him missed the days of old when he carried little political weight. Then again, he reconsidered that the first eunuch called him because of his blood and not because he was the king's champion. His brother, Halbedict, like a ghost, haunted him wherever he went, and no matter what he did. Bryce remembered seeing his older brother in the garb of the sentinel, the king's reed at his belt. A memory burned into his mind from when he was just a boy, a painted image. Brothers, man and child, the two of them cracked and yellowed beneath the dust. He would stand witness like a stranger to the younger self's adoring expression. He had told Nefatus that he didn't understand his brother Hull, but the opposite was true. He knew his brother all too well. He understood to Hull as well, but not as well as Hull. The rewards of wealth beyond measure proved cold, only the hungry desire for that wealth with heat. That was the world of the Letheri, the brittle flaw at the center of that golden sword, a sword that Hull had thrown himself upon. His brothers achieved their first 15 minutes of fame long ago, and now slid down the path of dissolution and death. He thought of himself, was he on that same path? He thought not. As the king's champion, he felt he stood at the highest of reaches. As he walked, a side door opened and someone called out to him to come quick. He smiled inwardly and turned. A few steps into the spice-filled chamber, he saw many sources of light made a war of colors on the furniture and table. He called for a man named Sita. Sita called for Bryce to come see what he had done. Bryce edged past the bookshelf and found the king's sorcerers behind it, perched on a stool. Kuru Kwan spun and shoved a strange object in Bryce's face. It was a pair of glasses, and it made Sita's face appear magnified by the lenses. Kuru Kwan put them on his face and secured them to his head. Kuru said that Bryce was as he imagined. Clarity ascends, and what he hears matters less than what he sees. Thus, the perspective shifts. The world changes, and that is important, very important. Bryce explained that the lenses gave the Sita the ability to see, and that was wonderful news. Sita reveals that the key was finding a solution that didn't involve sorcery, as looking upon the empty hold stole his sight to begin with, so he could not correct his sight through the same medium. Bryce wondered if he was the first to witness Sita's discovery. Sita said that Bryce could see the importance more than most. He stated that he needed to make adjustments and took the glasses off and began tinkering. He spoke while he worked and asked Bryce about his meeting with the first eunuch. He figured it was not altogether pleasing conversation, but not that it was important for the moment. Bryce said that he was summoned to the throne room. Sita said that this was true, but not urgent, as the Preda would be present shortly. Sita asked what the first eunuch inquiring about Bryce's oldest brother. He sighed and said to Sita that he figured as much as he could sense Bryce unease. He goes on to say that Nefatus is obsessed at the moment. He put the glasses on once more and focused on the Finid's eyes. He said, "Who needs spies when one's nose roots out all truth?" All Bryce could say was that he hoped that Sita did not lose that talent with his new invention. The Sita said to watch and got down from his stool and approached a table. He poured a clear liquid into a beaker, and when it was at the right level, he grabbed the beaker and swigged it down, smacking his lips when he was done. He asked Bryce if it was both brothers that haunt him now. The man said that he is not immune to uncertainty. Sita said that this was an important admission and tells Bryce that when he's done with the Preda to return, as he has a task for them. Bryce considered and then nodded. He said goodbye and made his way from the Sita's chamber. He thought to himself that Nefatus and Kuru Khan stand to one side of King Diskanar. There wasn't another side. The throne room was misnamed as the king was in the process of moving the royal seat to the eternal domicile, now that the leaky roofs had been fixed. When Bryce arrived, it was only his old commander, the Preda, Unatul Habas, was present. She stood taller than most women. She said that Finid Benedict was late. He explained that he was pulled into meetings with the first eunuch and the Sita. She interrupted and said that they only had a few moments and took his place along the wall. Frowning, he made his way to the old guard's niche and turned about to face the chamber. He thought that this meeting belonged to the other side. When she was happy, she turned to face a doorway. Out stormed a prince's guardsman named Morak Navath. He also knew that Morak had also been the prince's nomination for the king's champion. He thought to himself that it was well deserved. He observed the room, and when he was happy, he stepped off to the side. Prince Quillis entered the room, and behind him came Chancellor Triben Gnoll. Then two other figures, one making Bryce give a start. Queen Janal and her first consort, Terudal Brizad. He thought to himself that this was the entire fucking nest. Quillis bared his teeth at Preda Unatal Habas and said that she had released Finid Garun Ebricht to Nafada's entourage, and he wanted him back and to choose someone else. Unatal's tone was calm as she explained Garun Ebricht's competence was disappointing, and even Nefadus was pleased with the selection. The Chancellor Triben Gnal addressed the Preda in an equal tone that the prince believes otherwise, and it would be wise for her to respectfully reconsider. She explains that the prince's beliefs are his own, as her orders come from the king in this matter. She suggests to the Chancellor to kindly retract his challenge. Morak Navath growled and stepped forward. The Preda's hand snapped out, not at Navath, but at Brias, where he stood in the niche. His sword had been drawn, and he was stepping out. Morak looked at Brias as he was startled with surprise. The queen chuckled and said that the Preda's decision for the king's champion had been explained. She tells Brias to step forward. Unatal said that he would not be needed. Brias put his sword away and stepped back. The queen was shocked at this counter command and said that Unatal had risen far above her station. She said that the presumption was not hers, as she and the royal guards only answered to the king. The queen had some words regarding this and then approached her son. She advised to let things be and to be patient. The chancellor started to reiterate before cut off by Quillis. He beckoned for his guard, Morak, and then stormed from the room. The queen apologized to the Preda and blamed the meeting on her son, and that they had tried to dissuade him. The Preda's expression did not change, and then asked if they were done. Queen Janal wagged a finger, and then her and her entourage left. Once they were all gone, the Preda turned to Brice, I don't fucking know, and said that his speed took her breath away. She did not see or hear the sword, but rather anticipated the move, as if she hadn't, Morak would have been dead. After a few words between the two, the Preda left. He thought to himself that Gurun Ebrucht was a poor bastard. Recalling that the Sita wanted him, he returned and left the chamber. Ah, my God. What?
That was a tough section. I guess we'll see what your comments have, but I don't know how much I'm going to have to add on things for that. But
fair enough. I feel like I actually had quite a bit. I mean, it's essentially 3 interactions in one section, right? And this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about the like pieces all kind of being revealed. You know, Bryce is talking about stating that Baruch acts on behalf of King Discanar. And, you know, Nefada says, well, sure. Bryce said that if this was the case, then Hull would seek to counter the merchant. And they're talking about Hull and the instructions that Baruch has. And those instructions don't seem to represent the king's interest. So it's assumed that Hull would. So basically, from what I can understand, is that what I can deduce from the puzzles is that the king wants peace. The king just wants to throw money at Honan Mosag to just, hey, we're sorry, it wasn't us. It was actually these people. My bad, here's some money, get over it, right? But then it seems like Queen Janal is looking to incite some type of war with the Edur and is going to send her son to essentially fuck it up, right? And even in this section, right, like she blames it on her son. Oh, my son made this meeting. We tried to dissuade him. Right? Like, no, not at all. Right. So my guess is that Baruch holds instructions from the queen.
That's a good take. I like that. Basically, how I look at this, like this whole section's basically as like Game of Thrones. I don't know if you guys have seen Game of Thrones or not. This is like clearly like everybody's got their own intentions, and when you put them all in one room, it's not pretty, and
Right.
you kind of start to see that. Well, I kind of had an alliance with this person, and then we were gonna do this, and it kind of like it's a poop show here, really, because everybody has their own. Everybody wants to do their own thing, and some might think it's an easy resolution, and then some it's a little more complicated, and they put themselves not in the best positions, maybe. So that's how I'm looking at this like play out, as if like I know it sounds silly, and I don't want to compare or anything, but you put in the throne room with Joffrey, Cersei, Jon Snow, and Daenerys. We're gonna have some stuff going on, basically.
Yeah.
I was thinking Varys, Littlefinger, and Cersei. But yeah, I mean, any combination really works.
And that's what it is. It's like, oh, you mentioned eunuch. Oh, I'm thinking like this is Varys right here, and like we know how schemy and smart Varys is. So I'm like, whoever this Nefadus guy is, this eunuch, he's working with somebody.
Was Nefadus, is he also a Bedict? Because there's a lot of brothers here.
No, so we've got
not these ones, but like there's a bunch of Bedict brothers total that we've met so far. Because you got Paul, Brees, Sehol, the one that starts with an F, right?
The Finad?
Was that a title or was that a name?
What's the title?
No, so right now we have Bryce. That's really it. Yeah, I mean you have Tahol, Bryce, and Hull basically.
But then there's also a number of Sengar brothers as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not so much right here, but just in general. I don't know. Like, I had a little bit of a hard time. Like, you got these different titles, Seda, Preda, and like they're all very similar. I'm sure that's probably by design.
Do you guys look at like when you guys read? This is just like completely off topic, but do you guys look at like the glossary and stuff?
Every once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, not too often.
Please use the glossary. Please, it'll help you. I promise. This is not spoiler or anything. Please use the glossary. It's very it'll definitely help for sure.
You can do that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I haven't really thought to go back to it more, but I don't know. I just haven't.
It'll clear some things up.
Like with the titles.
Because like Preda is just like that's not a person. It's just like basically another word for like commander. And then there's like, or captain. And then there's another name for like commander. And that's it's super easy to follow if you look at it.
Yeah, I could probably take 5 minutes and do that, like as I'm reading it.
Yeah, Finad, just another word for captain.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. But yeah. No, now I'm looking at it. Okay. Next thought. Bryce and Nefadus are saying like, oh, well, in lieu of potentially Hull fucking up this misinterpretation, they want to counter Baruch in their own way. And so it sounds like they're trying to thwart whoever's been in, Queen Janal to Baruch to present to the Edur. And again, like I said, I feel like Nefadus is trying to, like Nefadus, Sita, and the king all kind of align on the common interest of just offering peace, like, hey, this wasn't us, we didn't kill your seals, like blah blah blah.
You hit it on the nail.
And then he kind of talks about his brothers a little bit. Like he told Nefadus that he doesn't really know them well, but he actually understood them very well, maybe one over the other. And as you mentioned a little bit, this is an interesting family dynamic, and like I have seen similar patterns, but I'm just not sure what to make of it yet. But I would imagine that eventually things will be revealed. This part where he puts on these glasses, right, And he's saying that clarity ascends, and what he hears matters less than what he sees. Thus, the perspective shifts. The world changes, and that is important, very important. And I love this because without clarity, it's possible that what doesn't seem important now is because there is clarity, because now there is perspective one didn't have before. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of the first section of the first chapter again about the gift of Father Shadow, where to see is to look away. And both can be blinding. I feel like we see a lot of that, or a little bit in this chapter, where clarity can be blinding, but so can, unclarity. So it was just really cool how that made me think of that again.
It's very philosophical.
Yeah, because without clarity, you have a predisposed perspective. You put the lenses on, and now you've got clarity, and your perspective shifts, right? And then this part where he puts a clear liquid into a beaker, and then when it was at the right level, it said, that he tossed it back and then smacked his lips. And I'm assuming that meant that he drank it, but I guess that's maybe just my one-sided perspective on it. Like, did he drink it, or what exactly did he do with this beaker?
Yeah,
I guess
Don't-
that's what I thought.
don't overlook it. He drank it.
Okay. Okay.
Someone says they swig something down. Yeah, they drank it.
Oh, it didn't. That was my interpretation. It is that
Yeah.
he swigged it, but in the book it was like he tossed it back. And I'm like, assuming that's what that means, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just chucked it over the shoulder.
Yeah. Poured himself a glass of water and threw it away.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is another one of those comments where I have better understanding now that I read the chapter again post summarizing. But he has this thought about which side Nephatis is on and what side Sita is on. And then as this entourage of the queen and the prince comes in, and that he was like, the meeting belonged to the other side. I wasn't quite sure what that was referring to, but now it makes more sense to me.
And it even goes back to the clarity thing that you'd previously mentioned. It's like, oh, that's what it was.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then, I commented about Molrak Navath, and it just lots of introductions in this chapter so far, lots of new people. And I will not lie, I did struggle to kind of keep things aligned in my mind.
It was a little difficult. Again, like this section, I felt like was a kind of a more difficult one than maybe what we're used to. But it's early in the book, getting those introductions, just getting accustomed to the people.
Yeah.
Use the glossary. Use it. It's there.
I will
Oh,
going forward. I'll use it. I'll use it.
I got it figured out now. I know who's who. It only takes reading the chapter 3 times. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's normal. That's what everybody does, right?
The only thing that I really didn't understand was this Giron Ebricht person. Like, he was sent back to Nephatis, but I'm gonna guess that they were gonna use him for not the king's wishes, and now he's on the wrong side type of thing. But yeah.
Giron Ebericht is a captain in the Royal Guard.
There we go.
I bet that was in the glossary, wasn't it?
You would be right.
Well, shit. We're gonna have one of these sections where we're gonna look at the glossary and we're gonna have no comments. We're gonna have no comments because they have all been answered.
I'm aside from the conversation, I'm actually really surprised you guys don't really look at the glossary too much. Like, that's, oh my gosh, if I could never, like, the glossary is the holy grail to me. I'm referencing that like almost every other paragraph, it feels like.
Interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's just been hit or miss for me. Like, I'll look for something and it's not there. And so, like, I just get used to figuring it out. I don't know.
Well, then in that case, I feel like I need to like shed some light here. So there's 2 glossaries.
Yes.
There's one in the front and the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the other 4 books we read have been like that.
No, I'm pretty sure there's been one in the front and back for all of them.
Basically, the front one has like the characters that like are kind of like taking place in the book, and then the back is more so like I guess you could say like the appendix of like the things that are always prevalent. So like in the back, it'll have like the Warrens and the gods, the ascendants.
I know I've looked at the one in the back. I've looked through on this book. Not that I like dug deep into it, but I was looking at like the different things and in the different holds. That was about it. Well, we ready to keep going here?
Yep.
Did you guys pick up on like the tile stuff?
I mean,
this last section or the one coming up
No.
here? Was there tile stuff in Justin's section? I don't remember.
no.
No, it's this upcoming one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Justin does a really good job with like the Warrens, and I'm going to assume he will be equally as great with the holds and the tiles and stuff. So I'm sure you'll probably have some thoughts, probably more than I've got on that, Justin. So I will look forward to hearing that.
I'll do my best.
The Sita had been waiting outside his door, apparently practicing some dance moves when Breeze arrived. Kuru Kwan asked if it was a fraught few moments. The Sita or Breeze, I guess I wasn't sure who, said it wasn't important at the time and to get a move on. 50 or so paces on, and Breeze had guessed where they were going, and his heart was not happy. It was a place he had heard of, but not been to. It looked like the King's Champion could go anywhere they wanted, where a lowly Finad was not, but this time the King's Champion's privilege seemed suspect. They'd come to a pair of massive copper doors with no apparent way into them. The Sita leaned into them and they split. Beyond the doors were stairs that led to a narrow walkway just above knee height. The room was a circle, and in the floor were luminous tiles that formed a spiral, and the walkway ended at a platform in the center of the room. Kuru Kwan led Breeze onto the walkway and said it swung back and forth wildly. The Sita said it was striving for balance made manifest. One's steps need to be in the proper rhythm, which is important and difficult since there are two of them. He told Breeze not to look down at the tiles yet, for they were not ready. They need to get to the platform first. Once they made it, he called Breeze to his side to look upon the first tile in the spiral and asked what he saw. Breeze looked at the glowing tile. It was large and almost square. He thought to himself, the holds, the sedents, Kuru Kwan's chamber of divination. All over Letheris there were casters of the tiles, readers of the holds, but what they possessed were the size of dice. Only the king's sorcerer had tiles like these. Breeze said he saw a barrow in a yard. Kuru was pleased and said he saw true. An unhinged mind would have revealed itself in this moment, and that the barrow was the third from the last among the tiles of the Azath hold. What did he sense from it? Breeze frowned and said restlessness, and Kuru said that was disturbing. However, the barrow was strong and would not yield its claim. He should consider. Something is restless beneath the earth here, and each time he has visited in the past month, the barrow tile had begun the spiral. Breeze said, or ended it. Kuru tilted his head and said that was possible, and that a swordsman's mind thinks of the unexpected. Was it important? They would see. Begins or ends. If the barrow is in no danger of yielding, why does the tile then persist? Maybe they witness what is, while the restlessness promises what will be. That was alarming. Breeze asked if he had visited the site of the Azath. He said he had, and that both tower and grounds are unchanged, contained. He told Breeze to look onward. Next, he saw a gate formed from a dragon's jaw. Kuru said it was fifth in the hold of the dragon. Gate. How does it relate to the barrow of the Azath? Does Gate precede or follow? In his whole life, this was the first time he had seen the tile of the dragon's hold in the spiral. They are witnessing, or soon would witness, a momentous occasion. Breeze said they were nearing the seventh closure. The first empire shall be reborn. King Diskinar shall transform and ascend, assuming the ancient title of first emperor. Kuru said that was the popular interpretation, but true prophecy was more obscure. Caught Breeze off guard, and he asked what he meant by obscure. Kuru said, the king who rules at the seventh closure shall be transformed and become the first emperor reborn. But there are questions. How was he transformed and reborn? In the flesh? The first emperor was destroyed along with the first empire in a distant land, leaving the colonies here shaken. They have existed in isolation for a long, long time, longer than Breeze might believe. Breeze said, almost 7,000 years. Asita smiled and said, over time language changes and meanings twist. What would he say if they dropped some more zeros in at the seventh closure? Breeze thought 70,000, 700,000 years. Asita asked him to describe the next tile. Breeze said he recognized one, the betrayer of the empty hold, and the tile after it, the white crow of the fulcrum. The third he didn't know, but looked like shards of ice. The Sita nodded, saying it was seed, the last tile in the hold of ice. This was another unprecedented appearance. He asked what the last one was. Breeze said it was blank. Kuru said the divination ceases, or maybe it's blocked by events that haven't taken place yet, by choices yet unmade, or maybe it marks the beginning, the flux that is now in this very moment, which led to the end, the last tile, barrel, a unique mystery. He was lost. Breeze asked if anyone else had seen this or if he discussed it with anyone else. He said the first eunuch had been informed to make sure he doesn't walk into the great meeting blind to whatever may happen there. And now him, or Breeze, so there were 3 of them in the know. Breeze asked him why. The Sita said because he was the king's champion. It is his job to guard the king's life. Breeze sighed and said the king keeps sending him away. The Sita said he would remind the king he would need to get over his love for solitude. Now he wanted to know what the queen had done to incite her son to do in the throne room. Breeze said the queen claimed it was the opposite. Kuru said it didn't matter, but he needed to know what Breeze saw, what his heart whispered. Breeze said Hall might be a problem as he looked at the blank tile. Breeze thinks he might kill Prince Quillis Discanar. I really liked reading this section, and the description of the room with the tiles in it was a very neat visual. It was very clear in my head seeing it, but it was quite neat. Justin, I'm hoping you pick some stuff out like with the tiles and stuff, and I guess we'll see. But my first thought here, again, I guess would be probably solved by looking at the glossary. But we get the seat as a title, right? What did you say? It was like the captain or commander of some sort, right?
Sorcery.
The seat is a sorcerer.
Sorcerer, which makes sense, I guess, because he's in this room with these giant tiles that only the king sorcerer has. But next thought here, so it talks about the Azath hold. So I guess we're probably not going to get much in the way of warrens in this book. It's going to be the holds, I assume, which I'm sure you're going to dig that, Justin, but I'll probably need your help as we go through that, just because that, like the warrens and that type of thing, is just one of the things I kind of struggle with.
Sure. I can do my best. I feel like the holds up to this point have been very minimal in there.
Yeah.
I would assume that eventually I'll grasp it, but I feel like the holds are kind of, from what we know, they're like an older version of the deck of dragons, right?
Yeah. My next thought here, they're talking about the barrow. Is it the beginning or the ending? It's not in any danger of yielding, so why does it persist? I'm like, you know what? It just sounds like a Justin question. I don't know if you have an answer or any thoughts on that, but my mind was like, oh man, I bet if somebody's going to understand this between the two of us, it's going to be you.
Right. I don't know if I can give you any lucrative answer. I mean, the hard part is what they're seeing a spiral, right? Well, is what stems from the center the beginning or the end? And I think that's their question, but not necessarily that it begins nor ends, but rather, why is it that the barrow hold keeps persisting? Why is it not going away? So it has its prevalence regardless of whether it's at the beginning or the end, because it keeps coming up.
Sounds good. Kuru, he says this is the first time in his life that he had seen the tile of the dragon hold in the spiral. And I guess to me that, what does that mean? We don't know, but sounds significant if this is the first time he's seen that. I guess I don't think we know how old this dude is, but it ain't the first time he's looked at this. Why is it showing itself now?
Right.
Oh, I have a thought. The barrow is the Azath house, right?
Yes.
The dragon, Silchas Ruin, is in the Azath, right?
Yep.
Is this like showing that it's persisting? Like, is he trying to break free or something like that? I don't know.
So my thing here is, because you mentioned we're not really getting war and stuff, we're talking about holds. It almost seems like they're like two separate things, but they're like also the same thing. When we talk about the deck of dragons, we talk about warrens. But if we talk about the tiles, we talk about holds. That's not to say though that they're not necessarily the same thing, but they have the same ideas. They're just a different, I guess they hold different meanings, I guess I'll say. Like you like we didn't hear about like this dragon hold in terms of like the deck of dragons, because it's not a part of that, but it is a part of the holds that are in relation to the tiles. So it's almost like they're like two separate like decks, if that makes sense.
Yes, kind of. I think
It's all weird.
Yeah,
This part really, like, when someone tries to understand like the magic system, I don't understand it sometimes. It's so like intricate, but it's also very simple, and it seems simple. I've seen like some maps about like this whole idea of like these holds and Azath houses and the barrows. It's extremely confusing. Someone had mentioned it about like, think of it kind of like Pokemon, and how, obviously like water has much more power over fire.
right.
And they can kind of like cancel each other out. But I think the biggest thing to take away is that like we're kind of talking about like two different things here.
Now, like this thought kind of formed as I was reading this out loud, and which is always kind of fun when that happens. But I wonder if Silchas is trying to do something, and it's saying that the barrow is in no danger of yielding. The Azath, it isn't going to give him up. I don't know. I'm not sure where my train of thought is going exactly, but it's kind of going in that direction. I guess
there's a reason the thought comes up. So
onward and
you
upward.
might be onto something.
Once in a while, it happens. The seventh closure. Now, this is obviously not the first time we've heard that term. As I was going through typing this up, it really got me thinking more about it. Were there 6 other closures previous to this? And like, I'm wondering like what this process all entails. Like what's closing.
And it seems like it's happened before.
Right. Yeah. I guess we'll give Justin a second here. I'm not sure what he had to. These 2 sections I did. Well, my other long section and this one, I liked both these quite a bit. But yeah, it's always interesting because me and Justin were talking, and I read this chapter before he did, and he asked what I thought of it. I'm like, well, there was one section that I liked, but the rest of it I really didn't care for. But then going through our process of typing everything up, summarizing it, it does give us a lot more. I think we both get a lot more out of it. So I enjoyed it a lot more on the reread and summarizing, and then getting to talk about it with you and him.
It's super, super helpful. Like, you read it once and then you read it again, and you're like, man, I didn't even pick up on that the first time. And then you'll read it again, or someone else will have thoughts about the thing that you've already reread like 3-4 times. And they're like, and then another idea comes up, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I forgot to actually ask, what's been, your favorite book so far?
Dead House Gates for me.
Really?
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be really hard for these other books to top that one for me right now. Justin, I think, are you still sitting out with House of Chains?
Yeah, I like House of Chains, but then
Wow.
Dead House, Memories, and then Gardens.
Interesting.
House of Chains has been my least favorite so far, and it was the last chapter that I don't want to say ruined it for me, but kind of put that book in that spot for me.
Interesting.
All right, Justin, I don't know if you were listening or what you had going on, but seventh closure, I was just saying that's not the first time we've heard that. And I'm curious, were there 6 other ones? What is this process going to look like? I guess we'll see if we actually get to see it go through or not. I kind of hope we do, but I don't know if it'll be good.
I guess I don't really recollect too much of the closure part of it, but
I don't think we have gotten anything on it. Just it's a thing.
yeah. I mean, how much did you talk about the dragon hold and the spiral and like the first empire stuff?
Not the first empire stuff. So I don't know when you had to dip out there. So I had a thought. I'm wondering if there's some sort of tie between the barrow, the Azaph, the dragon, the gate, and with Silchus Ruin being in the Azaph. And maybe he's pushing to somehow escape or something. I don't know.
I thought that too, but also a couple of other thoughts come to mind. We know that from the end of the first chapter, the troll, the Sengar brothers are tasked to go find some spear or something like that. So I'm almost kind of wondering if it's not necessarily something along those lines, right? But also my other thought is, they talk about this restless. Brius frowned and said restless, and Carew said that was disturbing. It also makes me think of Reyes from Gardens of the Moon, right? Like he was in a barrow. He's also a Jaghut, right? And these are all events that happen prior to Gardens of the Moon. So it makes me think that as well. So I have 3 different thoughts where they all, if they're related or not, I don't know, but
you're cooking up something. That's
a nice pull with Raced. I wouldn't have thought to tie that to it.
Well, it's just funny because it's because of House of Chains, right? Like, I just kept getting this feeling that Felzen was where she was supposed to be. Like it was designed for her to be Shaik Reborn. No matter what Tavor was trying to do in trying to protect her sister, like it was preordained, right? And it's almost kind of like, that was the events that happened in Gardens of the Moon. But again, how is that to not say that it wasn't preordained, that Lucine was supposed to send Lorne and Tool, well, Tool may have been pure happenstance, to go dig up Reyes, right? Like to fight off Animander Rake. How are these? I feel like what Erickson does is he gives you all of these like separate pieces, makes stories out of them, and then these pieces somehow combine.
Yeah, I tie it into I don't even know which book I finally like started putting it together, but that's exactly what this is. We're like the bird's eye view, watching, like getting all these pieces of a puzzle, but at this time we're only getting some pages of a book, and we're only getting a little bit of a page or like a paragraph of a page, but it's this big, massive book of the Fallen. And that's like what this is. It's the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what this book is, but we're just getting like a page every now and then. And then eventually like it ties in and we see like what was happening this whole time. But that's exactly what it is. It's just puzzle pieces right now.
Right. It's beautiful. And I love these types of details. And, to read this again and again and have the same 3 thoughts, like that tells me something.
Right. You were kind of alluding to the First Empire. So, I mean, we've heard First Empire before, but the question has always kind of been whose First Empire? Because we know that there's like human First Empire, the Talanimus First Empire, that type of thing. But just as I read further into this chapter, I think, I don't know, there's if we got ties to the Talanimus and the Edur somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the First Empire, right? They talk about King Discanar shall ascend and assume the ancient title of First Emperor. But then Kuru is like, that's the popular interpretation, but the prophecy is actually more obscure, which again makes me think of Kellanved. Like everybody assumes it's supposed to be King Discanar. It's actually Kellanved and Dancer. As we know, as someone who is occupying that throne, I'm unsure of what the order of events are, but like they occupy the first throne, and then they're assassinated, right? And now they take on this fragment of Corald Emerlon, which is the Teist Edur hold or Warren, right? But so that essentially to me ties the Talani Mass and the Teist Edur together.
And that's a really good point, that we're kind of, like I said, we're getting some puzzle pieces. I mean, we're 5 books in now. So it's like some stuff has to start connecting, and it feels like it. And that's a really like good, it's really rewarding to have that feeling of putting a few things together. And okay, well, now we know that there's seventh closure. This happened 6 times. It's not foreign to us anymore. And it seems like every time we hear about a throne or a king or a warlord of some kind, they have this heavy burden on them. And there's this idea that they never are always going to be in that position. There's always something that's going on behind the scenes, or that's going to come to fruition about that. Because that idea of having someone in that power position, it's never like immortal, I guess you could say. It's not going to withstand the test of time. Something is always going to happen to that. And I think we're starting to kind of see that being in a very high position, whether that be like on some throne or in a very high position, it's a scary place to be in.
Yeah. Absolutely. See, these are the parts of the chapters that I really enjoy. So
I was really like, so Kuru, he's talking about, well, how would you feel if we dropped another couple zeros, from the time of the last closure or however it was, and then Breeze thinks, 70,000, 700,000, and I feel like he wasn't very like surprised by that. Like 7,000 years is a long time, but then to go to 70,000 or 700,000, like that's such a massive jump, and it's just another example of just like the massive time scale that we see, in this series. So I don't know. I kind of thought he would have been maybe a little more shocked by that reveal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as he says, right, like language changes over time and meanings twist, right? Like he knows what's up.
Yeah. My last thought here, Kuru, Sita, I've kind of had a slight feeling, and I don't know if you felt this way, but does he just make you think of like a much less crazy version of Boost?
I mean, a little bit. I could see where you're coming from. He's a little less eccentric,
wacky dude. Yeah.
But like he's just excitable, right? Like he's just excited.
Well, that was everything I had there. I know you still got a few minutes, but I don't know if it maybe makes too much sense to start the next section if you just you got other stuff to take care of, Putter. So maybe this would be a good spot then for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there was one other spot that I wanted to bring up here.
Sure.
Yeah, it was right under the 70,000, 700,000 with the betrayer of the empty hold and the tile after it, the white crow of the fulcra. Justin, this is your spot. This is your time to shine.
Good.
Okay. The white crow. White. Again. Why is it coming up? I don't know. But
you do, but
yeah, we somewhat know, maybe, but it's another nod to something. And we were kind of talking about it, me and Derek, about the Warrens are always associated to the deck of dragons, but the holds are going to be associated to the tiles. But what we do know is that the deck of dragons obviously are kind of these spots for these, gods, but the tiles, they kind of have the same meaning, but they don't. They have the same like representation, but the people on the tiles, because they mentioned like, what's the point of having a throne if it's not occupied? That sometimes these things can change. They're like a very older version, but the white crow, the fulcra, the Sita, or the betrayer of the empty hold, there's some stuff there.
So I interpreted the empty hold and the holds as kind of like similar to the solar system, right? The empty hold to me is more or less the sun, because everything spiraled around the empty hold, right? And even Sita, while looking upon the hold, ended up blinded, right? So you look into the sun, you blind yourself.
That's good.
Yeah. These other holds around it are essentially like planets or realms, right? And my guess is that the white crow is, and we know the Fulcra is an unaligned like deck of dragons. It's like the unaligned version, right? So there isn't necessarily like a representation there. Why it's the betrayer of the empty hold, I have failed, and I am not sure. No,
I tell you what,
here.
you're definitely doing a much better job of me with the first time I read it. It's a lot of this stuff went over my head.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. But yeah, I would imagine the white crow. I mean, it's prevalent in a lot of things. You know, we've built up kind of our own theories regarding Silchus ruin.
I'll say one last thing, because there's some important things that if we've noticed that Erickson plants very early on, and then they're like kind of left and we're kind of dumped into some stuff, and then they come up again. And you mentioned a spear in the end of the first chapter. I have to keep my lips sealed so hard, because it's and we're not really talking about that chapter right now, but it's that's what I'll say.
Oh, it makes me more excited to keep reading. That's for sure.
It's a special book. It's a good one.
Okay, well, I'll be excited to actually move on. It's been a bit of a month regarding this book, because beginning of the month I drove to Denver, and then just last week I drove to Georgia. So it's I've had no time to like read or summarize or podcast or anything. But we know you got to go, and we'll be respectful of your time. So Putter, thank you so much for joining us on our epic quest.
No, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it so much, and you guys keep going down the same path. You guys are onto some really good stuff. I love having these conversations, and it's always fun to bounce ideas off each other. It's super, super beneficial. And, you know, I hope you guys have an amazing experience, an emotional experience, because yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here there's a lot of truth in here. So I'm really appreciative. Thank you guys for allowing me to come on and talk about arguably the best fantasy series.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time and the time that you did. It wasn't a short amount of time by any means. So thank you again for that.
No, you guys take care. Thank you so much again.
No problem.
Take her easy. All right.
Man, he was a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah, we should definitely bring him back.
I'm sure he would. I'm sure he'd come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your last section here.
All right, which is kind of another longer one, but here we go. The building Tahol had entered used to be a carpenter's shop. He looked around and observed the remaining tools and tables left by the carpenter. He turned to face the three women and asked if they had purchased this outright. Shan said that the previous owner's business had expanded, and so did his family. The three bought the place as well as some of the furniture. Shan gestured to the ground floor and explained that a small area was to be his and for his servant, so the servant could cook for the four of them. Shan said to follow them upstairs to the office, as they have things to discuss. Tahol said that it sounded like there wasn't anything left to discuss and everything was already decided. He quipped and said that he hoped they liked figs. Rasarth, with a sweet smile, said that Tahol could take the roof. He crossed his arms and asked if he understood everything. They wanted him to start this business venture with him without revealing what that was, just to avoid them sharing his secrets. Shan scowled, and Heejun said that they should beat him first. Shan said that it was simple. They have 30,000 thirds, and they want him to make it 10. Tahol stared at them and asked what they wanted with all that money. Shan said that she wants him to buy the rest of the islands. Tahol began pacing and explained that he started with 100 docks and damn near killed himself to make a single peak. Shan said that it was only because he had been frivolous. He had worked once, maybe twice a month, and did it within a year. Tahol responded that those days were murderous. Shan called him a liar and said that he never stepped wrong. Tahol said that he made his peak. He wasn't the first, though, just the fastest. Shan said that he did it with 100 docks. Nobody does that, but Tahol had. They were giving him 300,000 thirds and suggested that he go work the columns. Tahol said that if they thought it was that easy, why didn't they do it themselves? Shan said that they weren't that smart. They had stumbled across his trail, and now they were here. Tahol said that he left no trail. Not one that most could see, but unlike most, they didn't get distracted. Tahol continued pacing and stated that the merchant tolls lists Letheris' gross at between 12 and 15 peaks, with maybe another 5 buried. One of the 3 asked if that 5 was his. Tahol responded that his was written off. Shan said that there were 100,000 curses tied to the docks at the bottom of the canal, all with Tahol's name on them. Kijin was surprised and asked her sister if maybe they should get dredging rights. Tahol chimed in and said it was too late, as Biri had those. Shan said that Biri was simply a front man, and she knew that Tahol still had those rights, and Biri worked for him. Tahol said that that was a situation he had yet to exploit. She asked why. He shrugged and then stopped pacing to ask how she knew that, as he never told anybody. Shan said that she made a wild guess. She told him that he fools everyone because he doesn't misstep. They don't think he's buried his peak. Not anymore. Not after all. They've noticed how shitty of a life he's lived. He's truly lost it. Where? Well, nobody knows. She asked if that was why they wrote the loss off. Nodding, Tahol said that the money was sleight of hand unless you have the diamonds in your hands. Then it's not just an idea anymore. He told them that if they wanted to know the cheat, it was that right there. When money is an idea, it's power. Only it's not real power, just the promise of power. That promise is enough so long as everyone keeps pretending it's real. Stop pretending and it all falls apart. Shan said unless you have diamonds in your hands. Tahol said that this was correct, and then it was real power. Shan said that this was what he was beginning to understand, and then went and tested it, and it almost fell apart. Tahol smiled and said, imagine how dismayed he was. Shan said that he wasn't dismayed, but rather realized how deadly of an idea that could be in the wrong hands. Tahol said every hand was wrong, including his. He tells the 3 to go ahead and tell his secret. If the tolls could write it off, then they could write it back in, causing a boom in the economy. Shan said that this is not what they wanted, and that he still didn't get it. When they buy the islands, they want the money to disappear. Tahol exclaimed that the entire economy would collapse. At that, all 3 women were nodding their heads. Tahol said that they were all loony. Rasarth chimed in to say that they were vengeful on top of it. Tahol asked if they were all half-bloods, even though he didn't need their answer, for it was obvious. Kijin was Fared, and the other 2 were Tarthanol. They said they wanted to hurt the Letheris as Letheris hurt them and their people. Shan said because Tahol hated his own people, and they wanted those islands. They know about the few tribes he brought to the islands he bought. They know those tribes are hiding there, rebuilding what was lost, but it was not enough. Tahol did it for Hull, and they had no idea that he did it for him without Hull knowing. They said that they think they should tell Hull of what Tahol did. Tahol asked why they would tell his brother. Shan responded and said that Hull could finally heal. Tahol said that he couldn't do that. Shan stepped close and put a hand on his shoulder. She said that he was right, because they both knew it wasn't enough. Kijin said to him to do it right this time. He pulled away and studied them. He said it was the errant's curse to walk down paths he's walked before, but that trait of theirs is not to be distracted. Well, it blinds both ways. They said that they didn't understand. Tahol explained that Lether is about to fall, but not from his doing. He tells them to find Hull, because despite everything he did for the tribes, he's going to fight again. But this time, not with the Teist Edur. This time, it will be the Edur doing the devouring. Shan asked Tahol what made him think so. He said because the Edur don't play the game. She asked what if he was wrong. Tahol said it was possible that either scenario could exist, but it would still be bloody. Shan suggested then, at least let's make things easier for the Edur. Tahol said that what she was talking about was treason. Rasarth barked a laugh and said that this is what they've been doing the whole time. Tahol said that he's not convinced a bunch of barbaric overlords could do any better. Shan said they weren't talking about what is better, they were talking about revenge. She asks him to think of Hull and what had been done to him. They suggest that Tahol do it back, join them in revenge. Tahol said that he has worked hard to be apathetic and it seems to bear endless fruit. One of them said that the skirt didn't hide much. He said that his instincts are quite dull, to which Shan said he was a liar and asked where they should start. He sighed and said, okay. The first thing they were going to do is lease out the ground floor, as Beery was going to need some storage. They asked about him. Tahol said he liked his home and they asked what about him. Tahol said he liked his home and doesn't mind or doesn't intend to leave. He tells them to hire the Narek mother and children that lived in the alley near his home as cooks and runners. He then instructs them to get down to the merchant tolls and have them listed as property owners, construction, and transportation. He says there is property around the Eternal Domicile, and they are cheap. They asked if it was because they were sinking. Tahol said it was correct, and that they were going to fix that, and once done, expect a visit from the Royal Surveyor. He tells the ladies to prepare to be rich. They asked if they could buy him some clothes, and he asked why.
So one thing, I don't know, like when you read this, and even I don't think it really hit until I was like reading through as I was summarizing, and obviously I didn't summarize this, but it was talking about docks, right? And I was, again, I don't know what you were thinking. My thinking was, he was talking about he had like 100 docks where like boats would dock. Well, that isn't it. That's not what it was. I think a dock is like a unit of measurement for money. And it took me a long time to like figure that out. And this section, I kind of realized that Tahol was like he's like a Wall Street shark or something. He's just playing the market, and that's how he got rich. That's how he did it so fast. He manipulated whatever to get rich, and now they want him to do it again and just really fuck everything up.
He exploited the system. But what ended up happening, right? Kind of going back to what Putter was saying about the curses, right? The curses being stuck at the bottom of the canal. So other people got in trouble.
But he didn't.
And so they had to pay their weight. And so now those curses have Tahol's name on it, right? Like, if he wouldn't have revealed that, I never would have made sense of any of that.
No, me either. That was like huge. I don't know where, like, I guess I'd have to reread that again. I don't remember that being very clear, and I had no idea that was like a thing.
I think he insinuated that he looked it up.
Oh, okay.
I think when he was talking about it, when I asked him, he was just like, yeah, I just typed Malazan and drownings or something like that.
Oh, sure. But anyways, sorry to hijack your...
No, it's fine. It's just, my first comment is, but like I said, when Putter revealed that, it added so much weight to Tahol's story, right? And like, I totally understand why he's more reserved about doing it again. Yeah. Because law of averages, right? Like, you do something so much,
you're going to get caught eventually.
Yeah. But, they also chose him because he's apathetic to his people, right? Like, he took advantage of the system. He didn't go along with it like everybody expected.
Right.
This part where they say that him and his servant could cook for them, I was just like, I'm not sure how Bug is going to feel about that one. Doesn't even seem like he gets a choice in the matter, but...
Well, he's a servant.
This part where they're talking about Tahol's trail, and I know I talked about this a little bit in this episode, but this is where that came from, that not one most could see, but unlike most, they didn't get distracted. And, I just kept, like, when Seren Paddock was looking at Hull, he had this, like, distracted expression. In the first chapter, Troll Sengar was walking through the woods distracted and forgot to pay, respects to the daughter of dawn or whatever. Like there seems to be this like theme about being distracted.
I didn't notice that.
It's just, I don't know where it's going or what it means, but it almost kind of seems that like distracted is to be equated to like autopilot almost, like you're just going through the grind, you're just doing your daily thing, right? And that is you being distracted. So when you're not distracted, you're like super focused, your intentions are focused, right? Laser focused.
Sure.
And then this part where, he's talking about the cheat, right? Like the promise is enough so long as everybody keeps pretending it's real. Stop pretending and it all falls apart. Unless, of course, you have the diamonds in your hand. And I'm like, isn't this the fucking truth? Like, think about how you have, you trade your time for a paycheck, right? That money is then deposited into a bank. You pay bills with it, you buy things with it, food, et cetera, but you never actually have the cash in your hands.
Very rarely, anyways.
Right. Very rarely. I think about this every once in a while. I'm like, what is money if it's just not digital numbers? I know people can look up the code, the source code. Like if I go on my bank's website and in Google Chrome, I can like see the code. I can change the number to make it look bigger than it actually is in my bank account. That doesn't actually reflect what the bank or the institution has. But like if I wanted to take a picture of it and be like, I've got this much money, right? Like it totally could.
I imagine you'd get in some trouble.
I don't know. You're just changing what the number is being presented. You're not actually changing how much money you have.
But what if you tried to spend that because it says you got that much then?
No, I think you're missing. Visually, the number is different, but you don't actually have that amount in your account. It doesn't send it back to the bank and say you have that much money.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's just what is displayed, right? And then, we get this thing about if the tolls could write it off, then they could write it back in, like causing a boom in the economy. And I almost kind of wonder if this has something to do with Toll the Hounds.
I don't know. Maybe.
Not what I would have imagined. Toll, I kind of think of like ringing or toll the bells, right? So like bring on the hounds. But I also kind of wonder if maybe they had to be written back in. I don't know. We get to this part where Tahol asked if they were all half-bloods. And I'm assuming, half Letheri, half Teist Edur, right? And this is kind of where, like, even though it was revealed a little bit later, their essential plot, I'm like, this is the part where I'm like, it makes sense why they're doing this. They want to collapse the Letheri government or the royal houses or whatever as vengeance for slaughtering their people.
Payback.
Yep. And then again, I feel bad for Hull again because Hull essentially led the tribes to be slaughtered, even though he's still so revered as one of their own. Like again, it just goes back to show that the Teist Edur seem to be a very empathetic people, understanding, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Hull kind of got played like that's not what he thought was going to happen when he went to go do what he was doing.
Right. Yeah. They understood his intent and they knew that it wasn't malicious. My last thought here is, he tells them like, hey, we're going to go buy some property around the Eternal Domicile because they're cheap, because they are befalling the same problem with the sinking, right? Well, because of Bug earlier on in the chapter, he knows how to fix that, which is then going to increase the price of those houses.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he can get some pants.
Yep. And he can get some pants. But yeah, I'm going to run to the potty. Why don't you just read yours?
Okay. Stared down at the valley below. A river cut through. The blood of the mountains. The Edur called it Tis Forundal. The water was stained red from iron. The road they would take would cross the river multiple times. There was a Teist Edur far below that looked to emerge from the river, headed to the beginning of the trail to begin its climb up. Saren thought it was as if it knew they were here. Baruch wasn't in a hurry on his journey, calling to make camp just after midday. The wagons wouldn't make their way onto the rocky path until tomorrow, and whether it was caution or drunk indifference, it didn't matter. Hull stood at her side and watched the Edur climb closer. Hull said she wept at night. She said she thought he was asleep. Hull told her that her weeping always woke him. She said she wished roles were reversed. Hull said he was sure it would have been that way if he wept. Saren asked if Hull recognized the Edur coming their way. He said he did. Saren wanted to know if he would be trouble. Hull didn't think so. He figured he would be their guide back to the Hyroth lands. Saren asked if he was noble. Hull said it was Benatus Sangar. Saren was hesitant to ask, but wanted to know if he had cut flesh for him. Hull said yes, and Benatus had done the same for him. Saren drew her furs tighter in the wind and asked Hull if he was afraid of this great meeting. He replied, saying he only needed to look back to see what lies ahead. She asked if he was sure. Hull said they would buy peace, but at least for the Edur, it would be a deadly peace. Saren said it was still peace. Hull spoke up, saying that he was clear. So that he was clear, he meant to start a war between the Edur and Letheri. Saren was stunned and could only look. He told her to do what she wanted with that new knowledge. Kind of a big ending. Just a couple thoughts here. Saren is asking Hull about Benatus, and she asks if he had cut flesh for him. Wonder what that means, because it didn't say Hull cut flesh from him, but for him. So did they like kill for each other or something, like to protect each other? Like, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. Any ideas what that meant?
Well, yeah, I think that you're nailing it right on the head. Because if we recall from chapter 1, Benatus is a bit of a wanderer, right? He kind of isolates himself. So I would imagine that he goes out and probably maybe tries to help these other tribes some. Maybe he realizes that that's the unity that everybody needs instead of more or less a forced unity. So yeah, I'm sure that like he's probably crossed paths with Hull, and they have fought alongside each other against common enemies. I don't know.
Sure. This line where he says he only needed to look back to see what lies ahead. I really like that line, and then now kind of thinking on it, it kind of reminds me of that line about Father's shadow, right? Like, look away to see, or however that was worded. But I like that line. It was a good line, I thought.
Yeah, it kind of gives me the vibe of like, to ignore your past is to doom history, or doom the future, or whatever it is.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And then my last thought here, Hull just being very upfront, he says, just so I'm clear with you, I mean to start a war between the Edur and the Letheri. And you can do whatever you want with that knowledge. And just Hull, like, straight to the point, not messing around with it.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. But it's really interesting to see all the different pieces that are taking place here, and like I mentioned before, when my initial impression of this chapter was I was very bored,
Yep,
but
I agree.
And it's one of those things where if you're reading this for the first time, like, and you find yourself feeling the same, read it again. Read it again, read it slower, do anything that you can to understand it, because as Erickson likes to do, he likes to give you pieces of the puzzle earlier on, as Putter was mentioning, right? And then they come back up. So it's good to get a general idea of what is actually taking place in this chapter. And there's a lot of beginnings.
Well, it'll be good to be able to read another chapter here. I don't know that I'll do it tonight, but we'll see how things go. But speaking of Putter, if you guys are on TikTok, check out his his channel or page or whatever on TikTok, Putter's Paperbacks. He does a lot of different videos, and they're pretty good stuff. So worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, I'll have to give him a follow for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad he was able to make it on for as long as he was able to. So
Yeah, we tend to talk a lot. So
yep, I did forewarn him of that. So
okay,
just so we
Yeah.
knew. But
we'll have to have him back. There we go. Followed. Putter's
nice. There you go.
Paperbacks. Yeah, hopefully he can maybe shout us out on there. We can get a little bit of a TikTok following too, but
Yeah. I mean, I'm not posting too much on there, but
yeah. We got the Twitters.
that's right. Well, anything else today, man?
No, do you have any predictions for next chapter? Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna see?
I don't know. Probably back to like the Sengar camp, I would guess, unless we're going to get more new characters or something. But he said it's a smaller cast, so I don't know if we've got everybody yet or not.
Yeah, that was my thought, is that we'll go back to the Sengar camp, and I would imagine that Benatus and Hall and Seren and Baruch will be entering the camp at some time. And I'm sure conversations will be had about what's next. Or, the Sengar brothers will set out and look for the spear or something.
Start that journey.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it'd be cool. And I wouldn't mind seeing more of Udinus and Featherwitch.
yep.
So,
So we'll see what happens with those guys too.
yeah.
It's just interesting how like the Edur have Letheri slaves and the Letheri have Edur slaves.
Just a trading off, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of like an eye for an eye type bullshit.
I guess so.
Well, hey, it was amazing to get back and actually fucking do this again.
Yeah, it was. I'm hoping. Hopefully, this sounds. I hope like my audio sounds better with this. So we'll see. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It sounds fine. I'm sure that it'll be. I mean, your other mic sounded fine too. So
I just. I mean, with this room that I'm in, I know like when I listen back to it, like it. I don't like how it sounds.
it's a
Maybe
little
it's more-
echoey. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping maybe this headset will eliminate that to some extent with the mic
Oh.
being right here by my face.
Oh, it has. Yeah, you definitely sound more in the forefront. But I did like the other mic in the other room. So hopefully when you get that set up, you can do what you need to do.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, I guess enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah. You too. If you, yeah, I don't know if you're going to read this tonight. Let me know what you think.
I probably will indulge a little bit.
All right. Look forward to it, man. Take it easy. And we'll see you next time.
Later, dude.
Bye.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's DMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.